Hey, buddy. What's got you so down?
Hey, Court. I'm looking for a gift, but I just don't know what to get my Gettys nerd friends and family.
It sounds like we need to have a talk. Come on. You love this place, don't you?
You bet I do. It's my favorite place in the world.
Well, you see, at Addressing Gettysburg, it's our mission to keep these stories alive.
How do we do that?
I'm glad you asked, sport. You see, Gettysburg is the gateway to the most brutal and crucial time in American history, so we interview experts, and our listeners learn with us.
That sounds amazing.
It is! Mike, are you f***ing serious?
What? It's for the commercial. What benefits do patrons get?
You mean besides up to 4 premium episodes per month and Matt being the bee's knees as host? How about early access to special episodes, behind-the-scenes insights, and discounts for ticketed events?
Whoa! None of the other history channels I follow do that for their listeners.
That's because Addressing Gettysburg doesn't take its listeners for granted and really cares about us learning American history.
You know, I should gift my Gettys nerd friends and family an Addressing Gettysburg Patreon membership.
You see, the answer was right under your nose the entire time.
Make Addressing Gettysburg's Patreon a gift for the Gettys nerd in your family this holiday season. Addressing Gettysburg wants you to learn about the Civil War with us, and we need your support. We'll run this ad until it gets annoying, and then we'll run it until you become a patron at patreon.com/addressinggettysburg or by scanning the QR code on your screen. Happy holidays.
The hell are we staring at?
No idea.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios, you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. And today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, combined with one of my favorite places that I have yet to visit, which doesn't make any sense, but I've seen enough pictures, I've seen enough videos, and I know that the things I saw in those pictures and videos combined with the subject matter makes me want to go and visit it. I just never cut out the time to do it, but I will. That is my goal. We're talking about Civil War medicine with Dana Shoaf and Melissa Winn from the National Museum of Civil War Medicine. welcome, guys.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome back, I should say. You've been on our live show, and I'm surprised that you didn't cancel this.
Yeah. No.
Well, we talked about it on the way up.
You talked about canceling?
I said, should we just go to Antietam?
That's what I would have done. But it's a beautiful day.
It's a beautiful day. I'm like, should we just?
Yeah.
But we said, no, we're going to come.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Because I've been wanting to do this for a while. And I saw you recently did a Pat McGuire show.
Yes.
They came down to you guys.
Yeah, they did.
That was pretty cool.
Came down with a little setup, and we went in our little research library and did one there. Yeah.
Did you have fun with them?
Yeah. Oh,
they're fun.
Yeah, they're fun guys.
I have a lot of fun with them. When I go on their show, we just goof around. We don't even talk about history. We
were kind of goofing around.
Yeah, we had to goof around.
It's hard not to goof around with them.
Yeah.
So before we get into all the blood and guts and everything like that, why don't we talk about the museum itself? Give us a little bit of a history of the museum.
Okay. Well, currently the museum is at 48 East Patrick Street in Frederick, and it's in a building called the Carty Building, a portion of which stood during the Civil War. The rear portion is older than the front, but it all sort of came together in the late 90s when a collector from Illinois, a dentist named Gordon Dahman, who had a collection of medical items, wanted to display them, and he wanted to start a museum somewhere out Gettysburg-ish, if you will, Antietam-ish, because he was really interested in Jonathan Letterman, which we'll talk about, medical director of the Army of the Potomac. And so, long story short, they arrived at Frederick, and the town was very gracious, and they got this. We leased the building from the city, for a very reasonable amount of money, because it brings in tourism dollars. And what are we, the leading non-ticketed tourism revenue producer in Frederick County? which is
It's very specific.
Yeah.
very specific, but we're a leader in some way.
Okay.
So anyway, so the museum is currently there. It opened at 48 East Patrick Street in 2000. Before that, it was there, and then they
did some renovation. on
and
the
they moved it
building.
out
Correct.
to a strip mall somewhere, and then moved it back when the renovations were done.
Okay.
Yeah.
When was that?
They moved it back when it opened in 2000.
Right. It opened again.
Oh,
in
so
2000.
okay, gotcha. So it's been there since 2000.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. For some reason, it came on my radar when I started doing this back in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know it was there that long because I had lived here for 5 years doing the bike tour company, and of all the it never occurred to me. But I also wasn't interested in Civil War medicine at that point. I just was, again, like we were talking before the show, I had this arrogant modern view of the barbaric ways of Civil War medicine that are just so wrong in some ways, but in another way, I mean, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So, okay, so you've got that now. You're a nonprofit too, right? And people can become members.
Yes.
Okay, so what are they? How do they do that?
Well, Melissa.
Well, you can sign up for membership on our website, civilwarmed.org. There's a member page, and we have several different levels of membership, but the regular membership is $35, and that includes free admission to our main museum, which is the one in Frederick, but we also administer 2 other sites, the Clara Barton Missing Soldiers Office Museum in Washington, D.C., and the Pry House Field Hospital Museum on the Antietam National Battlefield. It includes admission to those. We also have reciprocity with the Seminary Ridge Museum, so if you're a member of our museum, you can get in free there as well.
Very nice. So is that $35 a month or a year?
A year.
You're kidding me.
No,
you get all of that
it's a
stuff for
great deal.
$35 a year.
Well, you also get
Yeah, we also have member magazine that comes out twice a year, The Surgeon's Call.
Can I say?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a member newsletter as well. We also have several member events scheduled during the year that are members-only events, including sometimes we do tours, other times we have events at the museum that might have like a behind-the-scenes look at some of our artifacts up close.
Right.
We have speaker series that's free admission to those as well.
Now this is interesting. Sex for sale, the world's oldest profession during the Civil War. So this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like the real life stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We never really hear about
incredible
this.
how much the medical aspect of the war touches so many different aspects of the war.
Especially this one.
In everyday life of soldier
You
life.
said you weren't that into I started at the museum. I'm director of interpretation, and I started there in November of 23. I walked in there. I didn't know anything about. I just never paid attention to it. I'm like, good grief, the stuff that was going on.
Was it that what was it that didn't interest you about medicine before?
I don't know if it didn't interest me or I was just so focused on
the battlefield,
infantry, cavalry, artillery, fighting.
Which that seems to
campaigns,
be, that seems to be where I am too. Is my whole life, all I cared about was the people who did the shooting.
Right.
Right. But then, after a while, not only does that kind of get old, but for me, I hit 40 and I started realizing I was mortal, and these guys were half my age for the most part. And they didn't get to be, a lot of them didn't get to be my age.
Yeah.
And so it was very sobering to me. And I was like, I'm treating this horrible thing as people treat football. Or, I wasn't looking at it as real mortal combat.
Right.
It was bars on a map or actors on a movie. Right. And, and so that I started feeling really ashamed of that. And then I became more interested as I was exposed to more people down here doing the show and everything like that. People come to you with ideas and you go, well, yeah, sure. That sounds interesting. And then I started to become interested in things like the civilians and the things that the women did and the doctors and the nurses and the hospitals and then, well, what were the procedures? Like, how would they do these things? How would they handle these things? I remember one time, you might know who this is. I forget his first name. I forget all of his names. But anyway, there was this guy who was really big into reenacting. I'll tell you how big into reenacting he was. Through a mutual friend, I got to go to be an extra in John Adams, right?
Oh.
And on the way down, we stopped at his house in Maryland and went to get outfitted. And we go into his basement, and it is rows of uniforms and accoutrements from like every war we've been in since the Revolution.
Yeah.
Okay. And not just like one representative uniform. Like it was like whatever regiment you were in for the most part, like he had a variety of uniforms, right? So he fitted us out with whatever the hell the production company told us they needed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we went down and did the whole thing. But his thing was he did a living history as a Civil War urologist, which I didn't know they had urologists, but that's what he called it.
Okay.
And he showed me all the instruments they had. Now, I would imagine that really he was just using a modern shorthand by saying urologist.
Right.
Yeah.
He was
I
a
think
Civil
so.
War physician, but
Yeah.
for whatever reason, he was very focused on the junk.
Right. Yeah.
So he showed me the instruments that they would use. These big, long, what do you call them? Like metal probes,
Yeah.
basically,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And it was horrifying.
Yeah.
These things. Some of these things looked enormous.
Right.
I'm like, how are you getting
Yeah.
that anywhere?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what they used. And that, I remember that, and that was 2006, I think, or 2007.
Okay.
That struck me as I didn't even think they would think of anything like that.
Right.
You know, like that. So that was interesting to me
Right.
that there were people who were they were trying to treat all parts of the body
Right.
as best that they could.
Well, when the war breaks out, and it's sort of at a tipping point for medicine, because there are medical schools, and in which doctors are scientifically trained, and there's medical texts, but there's also a lot of medicinal, loosely described techniques like cupping, to raise a blister to
Right.
evacuate bad liquids from your body.
Right.
Right.
And what the Civil War does medically is
Yeah, leeches.
because both in America, both Union and Confederate armies go with the scientific method that really pushes that forward. And not that those other folky kind of remedies go away, but they begin to diminish. And the other thing, about the medical history is in a sort of macro look at it, by studying the medical history of the conflict, you see how consuming this conflict was for both sides. Maybe more than you can even looking at the military. When you look at how many hospitals had to be built, how many people had to staff those hospitals, the medicine that had to be produced, right? The women getting involved in nursing. I mean, it is just this vortex behind the scenes a little bit, if you study it, like we had.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy God, the hospitals that created the thousands and thousands of people.
Right.
Needed. Yeah, because with an army, it still needs a lot of support personnel.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah.
all the people that the support personnel are supporting are able-bodied.
Right.
Right? In the hospitals, they're not.
No.
And so you have hundreds, maybe thousands, I don't know, people in a general hospital, let's say, or something like that. Well, you're going to need hundreds of staff members to do
Right.
that at round the clock. So
Yeah.
you need a
Yeah.
day shift and a night shift. And like, it's the undertaking for that. I never really thought of it that way until you just said that it almost had to be more gargantuan than the personnel for an army.
John Billings, Hardtack and Coffee, the unwritten story of soldier life. He's a veteran, right? And he has a chapter on the medical history from the Union perspective. But which actually, if you have that book and you read that chapter, that's a really good overview thumbnail of just about everything.
Like good primer.
Yeah, really good. He says that the formation of the United States Medical Department, paraphrasing here, but was one of the greatest miracles of the conflict. Because there was nothing there when it began.
Right.
There was nothing there. They had one hospital in the United States Army, had 40 beds. It was in Kansas.
Really?
Yeah.
That's astounding, though. Like, we had nothing. That's hard to believe.
Yeah, it was all very small scale, was a small army.
Well, of course, that makes
It is hard
sense
to
there.
believe, but also the idea of a hospital at that time was so vastly different than what
Right.
we think of it
Oh,
now.
sure.
It wasn't a place to go to get better,
Right.
really.
Right.
I mean, you were tended to medically in your home, and that was what people chose. Doctors would come to your home.
Right.
The hospital was not a place. Now we think of it as a life-saving place, but it was not considered that at the time.
So it was what place that you would go to die or hopefully recover? Is
Yeah,
that
they
kind of
were-
what it was?
It was usually, if you went there, it was sometimes it's odd. It's like if you're really poor,
Yeah.
you'd end up there to basically die. If
So it's
you
like a
if you
managed-
if you were a middle class family, you had a doctor come to your house
Right.
and
Can't do
treat
that
treat you
anymore.
there.
Why don't they do that anymore? Is it we have too many people now?
Too many people, I guess. And when you centralize something, and we all go to the doctor instead of the doctor trying to run around. And imagine if you're a doctor living here in Gettysburg and you have patients all the way down, and
Yeah, that's
you know what I mean.
Yeah, you
from
can't-
Biglerville to I don't know, some little town
Yeah.
down to the border probably.
They
Down to
do
the border,
have
yeah.
people doing that now, though, especially with the frustration with insurance. You
Yeah.
know, they're concierge doctors where you,
Yeah.
of course, you have to be very wealthy to afford that.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah, my friend's fiance is actually she's an RN. I'm sorry, a nurse practitioner now.
Yeah.
No, sorry, physician's assistant, and she wants to open her own practice and do something like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
where because she thinks the system is so screwed now.
Yeah, I think
Well, yes.
But people
insurance-
need care.
The insurance system
I-
has
yeah,
made you
I
an
can't,
administrator more than a doctor.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yes, exactly.
We can't begin to discuss the modern medical stuff,
Yeah.
but yeah, sometimes what goes around comes back. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, as far as the Civil War goes, it really very easy to draw parallels from the conflict to our modern lives to the medical developments that occurred. So
Why don't we go back to the beginning of the war then? We talked about how there really wasn't a hospital. There really wasn't a medical, like a military medical system in place. So how quickly, did they realize we needed something like that? And then from that point to the end, or just not to the end, but from that point to when they actually get things going, how long is it and what's the evolution of that?
Well, in 61, I mean, both sides are just trying to get off the ground and raise armies. And when first Manassas is fought, or first Bull Run, and gosh, how many there's like 3,000 wounded.
Yeah, about that.
The first Bull Run, I think it is a couple thousand. Yeah.
Like that. And that's more vast than, anything in the Revolution.
Sure.
Right.
And so there's no way to get them off the battlefield. Now, each regiment has a surgeon, but they're not really organized. And if you're in one regiment, you got to find your regimental aid station. There's no central area to go to. And some of the wounded at Manassas lay on the battlefield, particularly on the federal side, for a week. And many of them die in those fields. And so there's a tremendous hue and cry on both sides about how we need to have better medical improvements. So the Surgeon General in the Confederacy is Samuel Preston Moore. He will begin to develop basically Chimborazo Hospital, which was a training ground for Confederate soldiers, and a few barracks were built there on Chimborazo Hill. And he'll eventually turn that into, it's really the war's largest hospital by the end of it. It's a massive hospital. It could take care of more than 4,000 patients.
Wow.
In the North.
Now, how large of a staff would you need for 4,000 patients?
Well, every ward would have to have a overseeing physician, and it would have, eventually they have the position of matron, which are often nurses.
Okay. So
you're talking, I can't say for sure, but dozens of people in each ward.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? It's a lot. And to make up for that, they would detail soldiers. They had specific hospital stewards and things of that nature, but also soldiers were constantly detailed from regiments as the war went on too, to serve as nurses. But in the North, after Manassas, the Sanitary Commission, which United States Sanitary Commission, a civilian aid organization for the government, basically.
Right.
Frederick Law Olmsted is the general secretary. Will start putting pressure on the Lincoln administration. You have to do better. And they want to force out Clement Finley, who's the current Surgeon General.
Okay.
Because he's old. One of the members of the the Sanitary Commission called him an ossified fool, which is not very nice.
I love the insults back then.
And so
They're so proper.
And so Stanton will actually, Edwin Stanton, Secretary of War, will actually bow to that public pressure, and they will remove Finley and appoint a guy named William Hammond as a Surgeon General. And Hammond is the guy that the Sanitary Commission wants. He's younger. We would call him progressive. He has new ideas, and so they put this younger guy in place. And then what will happen is that Hammond will appoint this. They're all in their 40s, right? Jonathan Letterman will become the medical director of the Army of the Potomac.
Mm-hmm.
So Hammond wants to restructure the medical department in all U.S. armies, and he's prohibited from doing that by Stanton and Henry Halleck.
Okay.
And in a way, I can understand. They're just like, everything's growing so vast so quickly, we can't. This is another massive level of bureaucracy. We can't handle this. So no. So Hammond basically says, okay, and he will implement reform in the Army of the Potomac through Letterman. And when Letterman takes over, McClellan's the commander, Major General George McClellan, on the peninsula. And I have to mention the Delafield Commission, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Because in the mid-1850s, there's the Crimean War. And Jefferson Davis, who is the Secretary of the War at the time,
right,
appoints this Delafield Commission of 3 officers. Delafield's one,
Mordecai.
Marcy.
I thought it was Mordecai.
Maybe it's Mordecai. I forget the 2 older officers, to be honest. I'm sorry. And McClellan is the 28-year-old captain that goes with them. And they will go over to the Crimean Peninsula and observe the warfare that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
When they get there, a lot of the fighting's over, but they observe a lot of the medical stuff that the Europeans are doing, like pavilion hospitals, which I can explain, because they issued this report in 1859, the Delafield Commission report. And they talk about, the use of ambulances. We can get into a little bit. They talk about...
Which, again, is another thing that I can't believe that it took that long for that idea to come about.
Yeah. And, well, they were in Europe, but not America. And then the pavilion hospital system, even Florence Nightingale is mentioned in this report. So right on the eve of the Civil War, this report comes out with all this medical fact. I mean, there's other stuff in it too, fortifications, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of this medical stuff, and the United States Army is like, wow, okay, maybe we should try making an ambulance, and they do. We could talk about that, but so McClellan being on that commission, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's attuned to these medical changes that are beneficial.
Right.
So he's in league with Hammond and Letterman. He's in the same mindset.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to fix stuff. We need to improve it.
Yeah.
Plus, McClellan's army is dying of disease on the peninsula.
Right. So we got you something.
Right. And so Charles Tripler was the medical director. He's relieved and replaced by Letterman. Now, Tripler might have gotten a bit of a bum rush here because he was not a bad guy himself. But and so once Letterman gets in place, that's when you're going to start to see this 3-stage system of wounded removal, better approaches to setting up camps, and the organization and proper use of ambulances.
So he's not. You're talking about better use of setting up camps for health purposes, right?
Yes.
For sanitary
Yes.
purposes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's not just worrying about hospitals. He's trying to like prevent these guys
Right.
from going to a hospital.
Right, and he's trying to be preventative. He said we need open company streets. The camp should not be established near damp areas. Latrines should be covered with dirt at the end of every day, and when they're within about a foot from being full, they should be covered up and redug. Now, they don't know about germ theory, right? That's another whole subject.
Yeah.
And they think that bad smells communicate diseases.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
But
right.
because they're even in that ballpark, that means covering up a smelly latrine,
Yeah.
which means
Right, it's the wrong reason,
Yeah.
but it's the right,
yeah.
remedy.
right,
Yeah.
and
Right.
keeping the airflow so you get the bad odors are flushed out. Well, good airflow is
It's just good.
good, and Letterman hates soldier huts. He hates them. He called them like pestilential houses or something.
Okay.
And so, he says the roofs of these things, if they use their shelter halves, should be taken off at least twice a week at clement weather to air out the shelter half. So
Smart.
Yeah, I mean,
That's one of those stories that we sort of illustrate, not really, but like in person through our dioramas and the interpretation in the museum is these men are recruited. They go through a very rudimentary, exam to be accepted into the Army. Then they go to camps, and all of a sudden they're just surrounded by people with disease that
Right.
they're not.
Yeah.
They have no immunity to.
Right.
and guys are admitted with disease
Yeah,
because they don't really check
absolutely.
for
They're
it
not
that
really
well.
checking. They need people. They're not looking for reasons not to take you, honestly. So
You mentioned training. And actually, before I asked that, you were correct. It's Mordecai. It's Major Richard Delafield, Major Alfred Mordecai,
There we
and
go.
Captain George McClellan. That's who it was.
Yes.
okay.
So, okay, training. How about with doctors in the armies? I imagine it's a lot different than whatever it is today. Is it just because you mentioned before that the regiment has the local doctor come along or something like that?
Right.
How are they incorporated into what's the official like medical service? And does that change at all? Do they stay with the regiments, or is it like centralized eventually, and then they're all kind of divvied out?
Well, they will develop an Army medical exam that you had to pass. Again, in the Civil War with the Volunteer Army, not everything is always held to the absolute
Right.
bureaucracy. But yes, eventually there will be a structure in place that runs from the Surgeon General to a medical to the medical director of an army, and then each corps will have a medical director, and it comes all the way down the brigade, supervisory surgeons, and regiments were supposed to have. Each regiment was supposed to have a full and assistant surgeon attached to them, and then what Letterman will develop is this 3-stage system where. Well, maybe I should just go through that system.
Go ahead, yeah.
And it's 3 stages, where the first stage is what we would call triage, which is establishing an aid station, sort of a regimental aid station, as close to the front line as possible, where soldiers know that they can go to get immediate aid. It's set up. And then from there, the second level is once they've been patched up and they've stopped the bleeding, they go to a field hospital just out sort of the gunshot range. And that is where you have your division level, oftentimes for a corps, surgeons running this.
Right.
And all sorts of soldiers can, be sent there to these field hospitals, like the Spangler Farm here that the Gettysburg Foundation operates was a 11th Corps
Right.
hospital.
Field hospital.
And then once the soldiers are recuperated well enough there, which could take, a little bit of time,
Sure.
then they're transported to general hospitals, which are these vast hospitals like Chimborazo,
Okay.
where general means general admittance from any regiment. There's no, parsing it out by unit or anything. And so like one of the biggest general hospitals in the North is Satterley in Philadelphia, which had its own little railroad spur that brought supplies in. It's just behind Chimborazo in size. It's huge.
So then all of these doctors in this system, do they go through any formal military medical training, or is it just like you're a doctor back home? Great, here you are.
They do.
Here's a major's
They're
coat.
supposed to pass medical exams, yes, to become military doctors.
Okay.
When they had times of crisis, like Gettysburg or Antietam, they would hire contract surgeons, which are civilian doctors that didn't take the test, that they would contract for a period of time, because of the carnage.
And just kind of cross your fingers that these guys are.
Depending on who you read,
real deal.
and really this needs to be researched a little bit more. I think I've read where some of these contract surgeons were limited in what they were allowed to do. Right?
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because they hadn't passed the examinations.
Yes.
But some of those contract surgeons were very good, and then they do enlist and take the exam and go on and become military surgeons.
Okay. So, when you guys started to like get into medical history here, was it prior to taking the job at the museum, or did the job kind of spur you on to get interested in it?
I mean, we touched on it at the magazine plenty. And we even had one of our, at the magazine America's Civil War magazine, which was also in the group at HistoryNet with Civil War Times, we had a partnership with the National Museum of Civil War Medicine to do a column in every issue about some of these. And a lot of it actually spurred from the social media that they were doing at that time. There were some really interesting stories that we were seeing them talk about, including the use of anesthesia, things that we were also surprised that were myths and they were being debunked. So we wanted to be able to talk about some of those stories too. Inoculation of the soldiers, these were things that we hadn't really been considering as much as well. So we started this column with America's Civil War magazine.
So
we
it was
talked
kind
a
of
little
growing
bit about it.
Yeah.
Well, just for those that aren't aware, Melissa and I used to work for HistoryNet, which published Civil War Times and American Civil War.
Right.
And that's where we first worked together.
That's funny. I didn't realize that's what HistoryNet was, that it did both of those.
Yeah, well,
because I see HistoryNet online. And
yeah.
I'm like,
It actually, the company had various names. That was its last name. Well, we published 9 history magazines.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Not just the Civil War titles, others.
Yeah, we had a World War II magazine, a couple of military.
It was a great little
history.
company that was driven into the ground. Anyway, I won't go any deeper to that. But I will, as far as I
also correct.
Yeah, as far as I go, I didn't really pay much attention until I started at the museum.
Okay.
And see, one of the things is I like stuff, I like gear, I like material culture. And so the first thing I sort of seized on that I was like, ambulances, cool, wagon, right? And I'm like, they didn't have ambulances in the United States Army before the Civil War. I'm like, what?
Once you start reading about it, it's
I'm
amazing.
like, what? And that led me back. I'm like, where's this coming from? And I remembered the Delafield Commission, was in the back of my mind. I'm like, I wonder if that's got something to do with it. And that 3-stage system I just described is in the Delafield Commission report.
Aha. Okay.
They talk about the Allies using that sort of system.
Now, did they come back with any medical procedures that were new from the Crimean War?
It's not so much procedures, it's systems.
Okay. So,
you know what I mean?
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's ambulances, and they mention Florence Nightingale and her efforts to improve the British hospitals and make them cleaner.
Right.
And the establishment of wards interconnected by covered passageways, which is a pavilion hospital.
Yeah. Okay.
And why those were more efficient and better.
Is that an airflow reason?
Airflow. And also you can just kind of go down the hallways and drop stuff off in each ward.
Okay.
And that is what Hammond and Chimborazo is not really a pavilion style. I don't think the wards are connected. So you have different styles, but Hammond and some Confederate hospitals were. Hammond is a big advocate of the pavilion hospital.
Okay.
And that's out of the Delafield Commission. But yeah, the ambulances, right? There's engravings in this report. They're really cool of various ambulances. They also had these things that were like little wicker chairs that the Europeans draped over a mule that you would sit a wounded person on.
I've seen that.
And they tried those on the peninsula. That's straight from Europe, but they weren't efficient.
But how many of those would you need, though, with the amount of wounded that we're dealing with?
It's inefficient. It's inefficient.
Well,
right.
and then again, the innovation of the ambulance, it continues to evolve even during the war.
Yeah.
Many,
I mean, I'm not sure if they were
models of
wicker,
it.
actually, but they were these little chairs that...
Yeah, and that's one of the things they're trying to do is make it more efficient to carry more wounded.
But even those ambulances, because there's one down at the Spangler farm.
That's a Rosecrans ambulance.
I believe that's...
And so the Delafield report says the Europeans use ambulances. The first ambulance in modern history, at least, was developed by the French during the Napoleonic Wars.
Okay.
So that tradition of use in ambulances was in Europe for a while. And they bring this back, and previous to that, the United States military had just used whatever wagons were available after a battle.
Right.
So right away, Charles Tripler, I mentioned before, who was a surgeon, he will develop an ambulance, sort of one of the first ambulances. And it's more or less a converted wagon. It requires 4 horses to pull it. It's really big. It's really heavy. On the other end of that, they develop a couple 2-wheel versions of ambulances. One was the Coolidge. I forget the other surgeon's name. And these things were... just with the 2 wheels, they were terrible. They were called gutbusters. The soldiers hated them.
Yeah, I think I've seen those.
But they still use those throughout the whole war. They still need these ambulances.
Out of necessity.
Out of necessity. But, it's not until 1859 that they start figuring out what kind of ambulance. So in the winter of 61... William Stark Rosecrans is in command of the Department of Western Virginia. Pretty rugged area.
Mm-hmm.
His headquarters is in Wheeling.
Mm-hmm.
His young medical director is Jonathan Letterman.
Mm.
And Rosecrans is an engineer, and Letterman's a medical guy. And Rosecrans says, we need a better ambulance. We've got the... Tripler's kind of too big and heavy. The Coolidge is terrible for these guys to ride it. So they will develop a 4-wheeled ambulance called the Rosecrans or Wheeling ambulance.
Okay.
Because it was first built. The first models were built in Wheeling.
Wheeling, yeah.
And it can hold 6 to 8 seated patients. It has a reconfigurable rear end, or the seats can fold up into a flat platform that can hold 4 patients that are laying down. It only requires 2 horses to pull it, which saves on animals instead of 4. And they start making these things. And that will become the most widely used ambulance of the war.
It has shocks too, right?
It has shocks.
Yeah.
No Civil War ambulance delivers a nice ride.
Right.
But they're trying to make it better.
Yeah.
They put a leaf spring suspension on it. They're cognizant of it.
Right.
They
just don't have.
They don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have the roads.
They don't have the roads.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you can ride a really nice car today over a rough road, and it's still
going to be bouncy.
It's still a rough road.
Yeah.
And so, but they're aware of it, and they're trying, and so they make this thing, and it will spread. And east, west, Western theaters. Steve Fan, we all know, sent me a picture from Camp Nelson of a huge park of Rosecrans ambulances, Rosecrans model ambulances, and they're known as Rosecrans. I've read period accounts like of ambulance medical directors. Most of my ambulances are of the Rosecrans model.
So you would need 6 to 8 or what'd you say, 3 or 4 laying down. You would need a ton of these.
A ton,
right? But still, it's better than what was the other one that you said, the 2-wheeler
Coolidge.
Coolidge. Like what you can get 2 guys on that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you could get more than that, but it's
very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's still a higher capacity. I mean, again, I don't want to whitewash it. They will have to fall back to using wagons and whatever they at times, you know.
Sure.
But at Gettysburg, there was an ambulance driver who said his horses were in harness for 60 hours straight. They were just picking guys up and taking them from aid stations to field hospitals.
How did those horses not drop dead?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
I see these ones
that's a
going
whole
around
other
here
story, too.
with, for the carriage tours and everything and in the summertime. And I'm like, these poor beasts, like, how do they? But you know what? They're probably more resilient than I give them credit for.
Well, Earl Hess, have you ever heard the author Earl Hess wrote a book about animals in the Civil War. He calls horses industrialized animals. They're treating them like machines.
Yeah.
And it's kind of terrible in some ways because these horses just wear out and do die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what is the average cavalry horse has a lifespan once he's into the service of like, is it 8 months or 6 months or something like that?
Yeah.
And then the artily horse is even less because he's lugging around all that weight.
Oh yeah.
It's sad, but
it is right.
You need them.
It's they didn't have much choice.
No, now we adore them.
Yeah, right.
But so they've made it. They've paid their dues, and now we just.
This is a sidetrack, but we have really changed how we regard animals. I don't know how many times I've read accounts of bored soldiers shooting at dogs.
Oh, I could never.
Oh my goodness.
I could never.
Oh.
But you're right.
Yeah.
We have changed our.
I read an account of a guy on a steamboat in the Mississippi region on the Mississippi River. We were bored taking pot shots at dogs along the bank. I'm like, what are you doing? Anyway, animals were viewed differently.
They were.
They were utilitarian.
Well, they were. And, back to the horse, like now we look at a horse, oh, what a majestic animal, so beautiful. But then we hear about how the Amish treat them, and the Amish treat them the way you're saying here is they treat them like a machine. Yeah. And when the machine breaks down, and you can't fix it. Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I'm a Grant fan. That's one of the reasons he hated to see animals mistreated.
Yeah.
But
that's the story with Lincoln and Stoughton when Mosby captures Stoughton and he finds out.
Oh yeah,
and
right.
he says,
I can
what
make
about
generals.
his horse? I can make a general anyway, but not his horse.
I know.
No, but really, the horse is such an important part of the Civil War puzzle because without it, armies don't move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But, and then, by Gettysburg, there's ambulance trains coming in of like 200, 300 ambulances, for the Army of the Potomac. But they didn't have any ambulances. And ambulances also were not used in civilian life before the Civil War.
Right.
Immediately after the war ends, and I mean immediately, Cincinnati, which was a hospital center for the Western Theater for the North, institutes a civilian hospital ambulance service.
So is that the first civilian?
Yeah. And then New York will follow a couple years later, something like in 69 maybe.
So I think that's why it's so important for people to take another look at Civil War medicine, because a lot of the things that we take for granted today, at least the seed of them was planted during the Civil War.
And ambulances and hospitals go hand to hand. You don't need ambulances
if you don't
have a hospital. Right?
Yeah.
But people realize now hospitals have a role beyond just going to die, and they can be beneficial.
Yeah.
And you begin to see major urban areas institute hospitals.
Right.
And you need conveyances to get people there. It's all hand in hand. That's all post-Civil War, and that's all because of the Civil War experience.
Well, and I would imagine, too, that surgery advances during the Civil War, surgical techniques, surgical knowledge.
Yeah.
And probably one of the big lessons they learned was performing surgery on a dude in a tent or in a barn is not the best thing.
Right.
So if we can control the environment as best we can to the best of our knowledge, right?
That's exactly it.
We can perform surgery.
Look at these nice general hospitals we've built. They're whitewashed interiors. They have cross ventilation. They would hang garlands of firs and pine for fragrancing the air.
Yeah.
These guys, if you made it to a general hospital, you had a 90% survival chance. Now, you've gone through hell to get there.
Sure.
But if you made it to that general hospital, and your recuperation might take 6 months to a year, but you had 90% chance survival rate.
They can nurse you back to health.
And it's because it's a controlled environment, and you've got more than one doctor there to consult. You've got nurses to assist you.
Food's probably better.
We're keeping records. What is this guy eating? He needs to eat this. Yeah. And so they're like, hospitals
that's exactly it. It's a controlled environment.
Hospitals are good.
Yes.
And so that's why, like when I have this sort of corny catchphrase, when you hear an ambulance siren, that's the Civil War talking to you, which is actually true.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
You know, because they didn't exist in our lives, and now it's so commonplace you don't think much about it.
That's amazing. Yeah, it really is true that the Civil War, and that's the thing that about wars. I'm sure we could say the same thing about World War I, World War II, where there's these great medical leaps forward, like huge leaps, right? That would have taken us God knows how many decades without these wars.
Right.
And that's like the double-edged sword of war. It's a terrible loss of life, and it's just tragic all around. But then the things you learn from it,
the innovations that come out.
society benefits, and like you look at these wars, and like after the war, it's like there's maybe a little shaky time, right? But then sooner or later, boom, like society jumps up ahead,
Right.
until it destroys itself in another war, and then boom again,
Yeah,
So-
and that's exactly the story we keep trying to tell at the museum. Is that these are still medical advances that we benefit from today. We still benefit from so much that happened or was innovated during that war.
Imagine if it didn't happen, like how far behind we'd be today, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Like how long would it have taken for them to have discovered the benefits of penicillin if we didn't have the Civil War and whatever led them to that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Down the road, I mean. So yeah, it's
and there's lots of, like the prosthetic industry really, booms after the Civil War.
Yeah.
And why? Because there is a drastic need for
Sure.
improved prosthetics.
Yeah. And look at what they could do now today. Those things that don't even look like legs, but it looks like you could leap a tall building with them.
I actually had an interesting conversation with a guy who served as a Marine Corps corpsman.
Okay.
He retired. He was an older guy, but he was in the service a long time. And he said that there's actually been sort of an increase in amputations in the militaries because the prosthetics are so good.
So you mean today there's an increase?
Today.
Really?
Because unfortunately, these poor guys that get mangled by these IUDs, it's better for them to remove the damaged limb because it's so messed up and give them a prosthetic
because they're usable now,
than it is to try to have them go through the agony of keeping this damaged limb and recovering.
That makes sense.
And he told me this story. I hope I don't botch it too bad, but they were actually at Quantico, and they found a Civil War artillery shell was discovered.
Okay.
And he was sent out he was part of the team to get this thing out of the ground, or he was observing it, and it went off. And a fragment hit a guy in the back of his heel, damaged his ankle really bad.
Okay.
And the guy went through just years of agony because of this, because it was and he said, I have no doubt today they would have just amputated that foot and given him a prosthetic.
Wow. And it probably would have been, I mean, some of these prosthetics are amazing.
They're crazy.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely.
We have some in the museum to compare. But the prosthetic industry gets a huge boost.
Yeah,
after the
and
Civil
again,
War.
that was an innovation that they were still learning that as well during the Civil War. I mean, this is, again, this picture here, this is called a recession, and they were trying sometimes to save the limb as well. They would take out
it's a resection.
Resection. They would take out the middle bone, the damaged bone, and try to save the limb.
Well, and those resections too, I didn't know anything about this till I started the museum. There's different levels to look at all this stuff. One, a resection is where you go in, as Melissa said, and you take out the damaged portion of the bone that's busted apart by a mini ball or a shell fragment, a lead slug. And you remove the bone, but leave the muscle, basically, and the tendons. And some surgeons thought that was better because the guy could keep a limb. And I think some of these surgeons, they're just
learning too.
They're learning too.
Yeah.
And they're humans, and they're like, I just don't want to cut another limb off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sure.
I want to save this guy's limb.
This guy I'm showing here, he was shot in the shoulder.
Yeah.
And it's the caption says, William Henderson sent this image with his letter to Dr. Norris saying it was taken 20 years after his wounding. He thanked the doctor for his attentive treatment that allowed him far greater use of it than one would suspect from the wound. So I guess I don't know the story here because I'm sure this has to do with the article. But what is the story with this guy?
Well, this guy wrote the doctor and thanked him for saving his limb, and that's really what it was. The letter. We have a feature in there like a primary account. Do you know what I mean? And so the primary account was this letter that this former patient wrote this surgeon after the war. Sometimes these resections don't work. The limb is just hanging there, and some of these guys will have amputations after the war to get a prosthetic. But
really?
Yeah, because
they were more useful.
Well, sure.
Yeah, more functional.
Yeah, I remember when we talked about resections with Rick and Fran, and Rick was a orthopedic surgeon, and so he really knew about that. And so he explained it to me, and I never really dove into it deeply with him, but it never made sense to me. Because I imagined that you would look like you just had like a rubber arm or something. Because if you're missing the bone here, what are you doing with it?
Right.
It's just
yeah.
And I would rather you just hack it off.
The limbs were often, I hate to say useless, but they couldn't do much with them.
Yeah. You just spin it around and do like party favors stuff, but parlor tricks.
Yeah. But to wrap the ambulance thing real quick, there's kind of going back to that. There's the Rosecrans and the two other models I mentioned, but just like everybody's trying to come up with a breech loading weapon that works, there's all sorts of people suddenly jump into
the ambulance market.
And there's interesting patent applications.
What's the craziest one you've seen?
This guy named Moritz Pinner, who he called it an ambulance kitchen. And it was like a combination.
My kind of ambulance.
Right.
It was a combination ambulance with a stove built into it that he said could cook the food for the wounded that were carried in the ambulance. It had a smokestack on it. And it was never built. But the guy was pretty enterprising, and he got... I keep saying this, and I have to do it just like you've never made it to the museum. I got to get the Carlisle Barracks because... This Moritz Pinner had a book done of affidavits, so that when he went to whoever he was trying to get to build this or convince them to make it, here, read this book of people that think it's a great idea. You need this little booklet. And there's one of those survives at Carlisle. But one of the testimonials in there was from Ambrose Burnside, who was also an inventor, right? And apparently Burnside's like, that's the greatest ambulance idea I've ever seen, but it was never built. So that's the craziest I've seen. Yeah.
Somebody, we should, you know what we should do? We should get those plans and we should build one. We should get somebody who knows how to make wagons and stuff, and we should build it and see how practical it would be.
It's a real gypsy wagon looking thing.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Stack. You can imagine, smoke pouring out of this chimney.
Like the guy in Wizard of Oz in the beginning, like his thing,
Right.
which I always thought was the coolest thing I've ever seen, right? It's like a camper.
An ambulance kitchen. Yeah.
Ambulance kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving off of ambulances, since you've started with the museum and you've been learning more and more about all of it, what, if anything, fact or whatever, that you learned since has completely blown your mind and blown your preconceived notions about Civil War medicine completely out of the water? Is there anything as far as like procedures go or whatever? It doesn't matter, whatever it is.
Well, I think the 90% survival rate in general hospitals was really stunning to me.
Yeah.
At 90% or higher of operations are done with anesthesia. Now, one of the qualifiers about these statistics.
Wait, I'm sorry. Is that at the general hospitals or regardless of where you're receiving? Okay.
Is that we have much more information about the North. A lot of the Southern medical records are destroyed when Richmond burns. But both sides had ample anesthesia and made use of it, either chloroform or ether. And I kind of knew going in that the bite the bullet thing was a myth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
or the stick or the strap. Or whatever.
And that just sort of reinforced it, with And there was a Chisholm inhaler invented by a Confederate surgeon that, you don't need much.
No.
And so you could be really economical with this stuff. Now, they don't get knocked out like we do.
Right.
They're sort of in a sleep state, and they might move and, twitch. And I'm not making light of it, because some guys leave accounts that they were semi-conscious during their amputation, and they could feel it, but they not the pain.
I know,
but
they could feel the motion and the jerking. Yeah.
But the pain had been deadened. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
and we still do that today, where you're in that twilight.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, in some cases you are. Yes.
My cousin just had a widowmaker, and when they caught it, he lived. But when they went through his arm, and he's telling me about this procedure, and he's giving me blow by blow, and I'm like, how do you know all this?
Yeah.
And he's like, they gave me something when I was kind of dopey.
Right.
And then I asked the doctor a question, because I'm looking on the monitor at this thing going through my arteries.
Oh, my goodness.
And he's like, I see this black spot. And I go, is that the blockage, doc? And he just goes, do not talk, do not move. So he goes, fine. And he goes to sleep. But he remembered the whole thing. So it's
so
still,
again, I don't want to make it, I don't want to sugarcoat it, but they're knocking these guys out as best they can. Now they wake up, and that's a different story, maybe.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
But the anesthesia, the use of anesthesia being widely accepted. I mean, some of these things, they didn't use ambulances. That just I'm like, what? So those are some of the things, the big scale things that really struck me.
What gets me is that whatever medical supplies they had that were pre-packaged or whatever, today you get gauze. It comes in this wrapper. It's sterilized prior, and you're pretty confident that I put this on a wound, I'm not going to infect him as long as I don't get any dirt or anything in there, right?
Yeah.
But there was, that knowledge wasn't there. So they're getting all this stuff that's pre-made, handled by whoever, who probably wasn't washing their hands, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure sutures probably came pre-packaged, right?
Yeah.
Now I know they would boil horsehair. Is that just in the Confederate Army, or was that in both armies?
That was mostly a Confederate thing.
Okay.
And whenever they used that stuff and it didn't get an infection rate as high, they didn't know why.
Because of the boiling,
Right.
So they're boiling it to soften it.
Yeah, but they're
sterilizing.
They don't understand germ theory, so they don't quite get it.
At Digital History Pioneers Foundation, we are about grassroots history on digital platforms. That means we are about podcasters, documentarians, YouTubers, and even TikTokers. All of these creators are out there trying to share their love of history with the public. They don't need ideas, they need funding, both from viewers and corporate donors. DH Pioneer's initial funding focus is on the Civil War era, with a special emphasis on the Addressing Gettysburg podcast. So be a vital part of the unique content Addressing Gettysburg has in store by donating at dhpioneers.com and help bring your love of history to the people. Digital History Pioneers is an IRS Section 501c3 approved charitable corporation that makes any donation tax deductible to the fullest extent of the law.
One of the greatest stories about this is a Union surgeon named Middleton Goldsmith.
Okay.
Who was in the Western Theater. He was in Kentucky. He was a Union surgeon. And he would aerosol bromine, which is a natural occurring element, because it smelled clean in his ward. You could aerosol it. And they were big into the aerosoling. And he noticed that in his ward, he had fewer cases of gangrene, and the ones that he had weren't as bad.
Huh.
So he's a bright guy, and he starts injecting bromine into gangrenous wounds, and kind of developing a treatment regime.
Right.
And it begins to kill the gangrene.
Huh.
And so he says to the other surgeons in the hospital, you guys want to try this too? And they document it, and he writes this really excellent report in 1963, which is accepted by the Union Medical Department. And they don't know why, but they figured out a cure for gangrene. Gangrenous wounds were 40% fatal.
Right.
Before this, it drops to 3%
That's a huge drop.
with bromine treatment.
Wow. So bromine, I had to look it up to see exactly what it. I've heard of it. I just never knew. Can you also take it as like an antacid? Or something?
You might be able to. I don't know much about it, to be honest.
Well, let's read.
Okay.
Okay. It's a chemical element, atomic number 35, symbol Br, and a member of the halogen group.
Yeah.
So you can put it in your light bulbs.
Yeah.
It's a dark reddish brown corrosive fuming liquid or vapor that's volatile at room temperature and has a strong odor. Bromine is a strong oxidizer, and it uses and is used in various applications, including water purification, fire retardants, dyes, and pharmaceuticals.
They also use nitric acid for gangrene, which worked, but it was really caustic and it would kill good tissue as well.
As pharmaceuticals is used in production of dyes and as an ingredient in some pharmaceutical. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. So he's just using it as an air freshener.
Yeah, kind of an aerosol.
So it's like the early Lysol, because it's like Lysol's a disinfectant and an air freshener. Yeah. So, and did he find when he's injecting people with this that there was any negative side effect to that? Because
not that I've encountered. No.
Huh.
Nothing worse than gangrene.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I guess I'd.
But see, that's
sick.
what I mean. Stuff like that's surprising, and I'm still finding out that stuff. And James I. Robertson Jr. is a really excellent historian. He's passed away for a couple years now, I think. He wrote a book called Soldiers Blue and Gray, first person accounts, and in there he has a chapter on medical stuff, and it ends at saying like, medical stuff in the Civil War is so horrible that nothing really good came out of it except maybe ambulances. And I'm paraphrasing, but I'm like, that's the way a lot of people think about it.
Yeah.
And you have to get a little deeper and start kicking around to find out stuff about like Middleton Goldsmith.
Yeah. Well, I have a book. I should have brought it in. It's a thin little book, and it's got illustrations of different procedures and things like that. And I'm astonished at how much they did know.
They knew a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
They knew a lot about anatomy.
Shocking.
Yeah, they did. And it's kind of unfair to us to kind of treat them all. But what is interesting to me, though, and now maybe just as I said, it's unfair of us to treat them like they're a bunch of cavemen. I'm about to do that with previous generations and say it's amazing to me that it took human history as up to the 1850s and 60s to really figure a lot of this stuff out.
Yeah.
That created the springboard for later generations to really get into stuff and really figure it out.
Right. And
we still don't know anything.
No, right, we don't. And one of the great accomplishments is the medical and surgical history of the Civil War. It's like the official records for the medical stuff.
Yeah.
For the Union side.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You said that in Pat's clip that I saw.
Yeah, multi-volume series.
Where do I get that? That's what I want.
Well,
is it published anywhere? Can I get copies of that?
Yeah, if
it's like the official record.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
not widely available.
Who was it? Broadfoot, maybe? You remember Broadfoot Publishing?
No.
Broadfoot Publishing is no longer in business, but somebody republished it. I think
I would love to.
I have a reprint. We have several original series in the museum and reprints as well. And you go on like ABE Books or something like that, and you can find sets.
Copies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Savas Beatty needs to get on top of reprinting those.
Reprinting it. Yeah.
Oh.
That would be a good.
I mean, because I'll tell you this.
There's
it's
some
big though. It's huge.
Really
I'm sure.
I mean, case studies in there.
And that's record keeping, which also comes out of the Civil War.
Yes.
Because local doctor in Biglerville, PA. It's like they keep written records in a journal. Whoever sees them, we don't know.
Right.
But this is concentrated record keeping.
Right.
That they're required to do, and all those reports get sent to Washington and then put together in this massive reprinted, here's what we've learned. There's chapters on ambulances, there's chapters on amputations, there's like what caused the most wounds, how was gangrene, how did it drop, all that statistics, all that stuff. Comparisons between white troops and African American troops.
They really look at this time period themselves as a learning process.
And so that volume.
What happened though? Do you think did human beings suddenly become smarter in the mid 19th century, where all this curiosity and record keeping is being developed? Like why?
Yeah. You have a combination of communication and transportation
Makes everything easier.
coming together, right?
Yeah.
Printing is easier.
Right.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know, and I forget what, like somebody said, the age of inventors, like, you know, like it's amazing. Like I just mentioned the ambulance, how many people were like, here's a better ambulance. There's people, here's a better mini ball. Here's a better breech loading rifle. You know what I mean? Just all kind of stuff like that. And, you know, you could parse it down, you know, all the way down to small stuff. People, you know, it did seem to be a very active period of imagination.
It did.
And
well,
so
again, it's the demand for it too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a real demand for innovation during this period.
But it seems like such a jump. Like if you, you know, there's those films of the Civil War vets here at the 75th, I think, or 50th. I forget which one it was.
Right.
And you just think, I love to watch that because I think these guys had to sit for, you know, what, 60 seconds or whatever, 10 seconds to take a photograph, right?
Yeah.
And now they're able to move freely and the photograph moves.
Yeah.
And they're also being recorded with microphones.
I can't imagine.
And they're looking at a modern day soldier demonstrating a water-cooled machine gun.
Yeah.
Right? Which, to go from candles and lanterns and daguerreotypes and everything, all the way up to that is such a huge leap.
Well, let's just take that and apply that thought process medically, right?
Okay.
We look at the medical, how backward they were, how terrible they were. They were also lighting their houses with candles.
Yeah.
And whale oil.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that applies to that, right?
Yeah.
You know, so the medical department is no different.
Right.
They're using muzzle loading guns and the developing breech loaders as the war goes on, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Everything is evolving.
Everything.
Right.
You can name so many things that were used during the war or right before the war that are like we would look at now as so, you know, so. And then it's like I almost like the medical is singled out because they're like they don't know germ theory. You know what I mean?
Right.
They don't know what a light bulb is either.
Right.
So just
Or an
calm
airplane.
down.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Yeah.
You know they don't
Give 'em a
they don't know
break.
how to fly. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they're doing a tremendous amount with what they have available to them.
Well, and again, if you think about, you know, human nature, if you go back to that time period and start to tell people there's these little things in the air that create, you know, that carry disease and, you know, you're looked at like a crazy person.
It's like in Back to the Future 3 when they're talking about what is it? Well, she gets mad at him because she thinks he's Doc Brown is giving her some kind of tall tale because she also loves Jules Verne. And she's like, you know, that's out of 20,000 leagues, or it wasn't 20,000 leagues under the sea. I forget what it was. You know, it was time. I can't remember. But it's like that. Like she thought he was bullshitting.
Right.
But he's like, no, I'm from the future. Like, it's really going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I always joke. People are like, you know, if you could go back in the Civil War, what'd you want to see? I said, well, first of all, I'd carry a bag of penicillin with me.
Yeah.
But then, you know, then it's like that. That story. Ray Bradbury story where the big game hunter goes back to hunt a T-Rex and he's told don't step off the path and he steps off the path and he kills a butterfly and it changes the whole course.
Oh yeah.
He comes back to the future and it's all changed.
Yeah.
I would probably save some terrible person and they would come back and you know what I mean?
Be worse than Hitler.
Be worse than Hitler, you know. It'd be like 5 Hitlers, you know.
Right. Hitler won't even exist because this guy was so bad.
This guy was worse than Hitler and killed Hitler because he wanted to be worse.
Yeah.
So I mean, but because they come so close and they don't get germ theory. They don't really get that until like Louis Pasteur had started pasteurization and then Lister. What's Lister's first name? I can't remember. But
don't remember.
Joseph Lister, maybe?
That sounds right.
That does sound right. Yeah.
Let's see.
But Listerine, right?
Yep.
Right.
You know, and
Still
so
in use.
that stuff is that Lister's report.
Joseph.
Is 69. I think he puts his report out about germ theory.
Well, again, though, still.
And a lot of doctors just didn't believe it.
Yeah, they just don't believe it. I mean, again, it's what kills Garfield.
Yeah, 1881.
1881. That's 1880.
That's really the...
Yeah, right. all the
1881
dirty
is really
fingers.
sort of the death of
Yeah, it is his death that really
That
the
like,
doctors are outraged.
Yeah,
we were trying to tell you.
Right.
yeah, and then they're like, okay, probably this germ theory is real.
It's
Yeah.
one thing when nobody knows, but when there's
Yeah.
somebody out there who's saying, no, this is
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
because they're all scared. Well, that gets us back to
well, they're scared, but also it will make them irrelevant because they're not trained in it.
exactly. That's what happens to Hammond and Letterman. There's an old guard of surgeons that are mad. They're mad that Hammond was vaulted to Surgeon General. And remember, the surgeons are not a meritocracy. It's rank. It's the same. So Hammond going to Surgeon General is the same thing as a Brigadier General that received his commission later than another one being given a Major Generalcy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Because it's the military.
It's the military.
Yeah, it's still the military.
And so there's people that are irate at Hammond, and they think he's obnoxious and arrogant because he has these new ideas.
That's how it works.
That's how it works. And
Right.
so he starts pushing for them to get rid of mercury in the medical toolkit.
Right.
Because they were giving mercury like aspirin, literally.
An evening with Venus, a lifetime with Mercury.
Right.
Yeah.
Mercury, you have a headache, here's some mercury. You got
Which is so insane. Because now they're like, don't eat fish
Yeah,
out
don't
of
do anything.
Long Island Bay or Long Island Sound.
don't break open your thermometer
Right.
Yes.
and drink the liquid.
Even though it's nice and red
Yeah.
and it looks attractive, don't drink it.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't drink your thermometer. If you're in the desert and you only have a thermometer on you,
Don't drink it.
Don't drink
eat
it.
Tide Pods.
because don't drink the mercury. But at the Civil War, they're like, mercury, come on, have another.
It's crazy.
They call it a calomel, blue pill. And Hammond is like, this is not good stuff. It's poison.
Yeah.
It would, we have a series of images to this guy who was wounded and they gave him mercury and the mercury ate half his face away.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, the only thing that'll help that is more mercury.
Right. And this is, again, we're talking about a big, messy step forward, right? You know, I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat it because there's good stuff that happens, but there's a lot of suffering and a lot of mess and a lot of misery. And so this is the downside of it. And eventually, Hammond annoys so many of these surgeons that they kind of send them on a tour of hospitals in the South, get him out of D.C., and then very shortly thereafter, he's relieved.
So, it's one of the viewers here has a question. He said, would a hospital, surgeon, first aid, medical soldiers, etc., be targeted by either side during the war, or would they be left to perform their craft as a sense of civility?
They would be left to perform.
Yeah. There was some civility here.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Winchester Accords.
Yes.
And that occurs in 1962 when Winchester changes hands so frequently. It's captured by the Confederates after the Federals had held it. And I think there were 7 Union surgeons and some like 700 casualties in this hospital. And they were overrun. And Hunter McGuire, Jackson's medical director, Stonewall Jackson, goes to Stonewall Jackson and says, we should not consider these guys
enemy combatants.
Yeah.
enemy combatants. So they drop what's called the Winchester Accords, basically, and all 7 Union surgeons sign it. And that essentially says that if you overrun a hospital, you just leave them alone and they can go back to their lines when they want. They're not considered combatants. And Letterman's plan, he specifically says, we treat a wounded combatant is no longer combatant.
Right.
We treat the
We
wounded
treat
as well.
everybody.
Right.
Now the reality is that if you have enough medicine for 6 guys and 4 of those are Union, they're all Union guys. Well, you have 6 Union guys and 2 Confederates. The Union guys are going to, you know what I mean? You know
Sure,
how it goes.
of course.
Or
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah.
And one thing I just have to say is we don't talk that much about Confederate stuff, but there's a lot goes on. And we're trying to put more of that in our redesign, which I know we're going to talk about. But it's just so much of it starts on the northern side and goes over to the Confederate side. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But they're doing a tremendous job with what resources they have as well. I just don't want to ignore that.
Right. And how are the Confederates learning this stuff? Is it because of things like the Winchester Accords?
The Winchester Accords. There's some truces to discuss medical, knowledge.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, I know there was a couple truces that Letterman was involved in, and both sides are seeing what each other's doing. Did I answer that fella's question? Yeah. So
yes, you did.
They did not. Now at every battle, I also presume that was a fella. Could have been.
It was.
Okay.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are medical personnel killed just because they're close to the front lines, but they're not targeted. Letterman wants his ambulance personnel to carry revolvers. And I don't know if that's for self-defense or to kill wounded horses. I don't know, but he says that they should be armed with revolvers.
But now would that put them in danger then? Even if they don't draw it, like, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I've not read any account of a medical personnel getting in a gunfight or anything.
No.
And actually,
or even being targeted.
or even carrying a revolver when you see them in photos, you know, a few field photos. I don't even see them carrying the handgun, but.
Well, it's funny now though, there's two examples from one of my favorite John Wayne movies is The Horse Soldiers. And in the beginning, when he meets William Holden's character, who's the surgeon, he points out that he's out of uniform. He doesn't have his sidearms. And he goes, well, if you look at the handbook or the manual, it says that a surgeon doesn't carry sidearms. And then John Wayne's pissed off that he's being saddled with a surgeon. And then at the end, he leaves the surgeon as their position is about to go into Confederate hands.
Right.
He leaves him and wishes him luck and everything like that. And I always wondered, it's like, well, what would have happened to him? And now I know because of you,
and
one thing, go back to the lines.
One thing to clear up is that Winchester Accords is an Eastern Theater thing, okay? But that attitude pervades.
Right. So they codified it in a sense, but
later on they will codify it. That might be not right when he says, "Oh, I'm not supposed to carry a sidearm." I've seen photos of surgeons with pistols on their belt.
No. I mean the Winchester Accords. Kind of becomes, for lack of a better word,
it becomes accepted. That's the way we do it.
But everybody was kind of doing that anyway.
Yeah,
it just put it on paper.
Yeah.
At least between those factions that agreed to it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so. You know, like at Gettysburg, William Moore, 61st Ohio, he's hit by a shell fragment, but he's not being targeted. He's a surgeon. He's a surgeon in the cemetery today.
Well, you have to imagine like those
National Cemetery,
those early aid stations, they're susceptible to overshoots, right?
Absolutely. They're right there.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can't really say they're being targeted because they're trying to find a safe spot,
right?
But you can't be safe from an overshoot that explodes over your head.
And Letterman's Gettysburg report, he talks about members of the ambulance corps that were wounded in the discharge of their duties because they're so close.
Yeah, there's a lot of lead and iron.
A lot of stuff flying around.
Yeah, so you're gonna have that problem.
Yeah,
but it's not that they're being attacked. It's not like in The Patriot when the British come to Mel Gibson's front yard and they start executing all the wounded.
No,
it's not like that.
No.
Right.
Executing the wounded.
Thank goodness, no.
Executing the wounded. You know, I reenacted for years, you know, and I think it's a great hobby, but it can be so schmaltzy sometimes too. And I was at one of these big Gettysburg events and I was bored. And so I took a hit and I was walking to the rear and somehow I walked through the Confederate lines and I got silly and there were these like wounded Confederates and there was this kid and I'm like, "Hey kid, are you wounded?" He goes, "Yeah." And I went and I shot him. I didn't shoot at him. I kind of
right.
And the kid took a hit and died. So I was like,
"Oh, nice."
There I was slaughtering the wounded.
Played along.
And now years later, I'm at the medical museum.
Right, saving the wounded. Well, because you're a little older.
Yeah, a little older,
a little wiser,
a little less,
a little more compassionate,
a little less bloodlust.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, so I love talking about this stuff. It's just so fascinating. What so with the going to the anesthesia, you know, again, like we always are seeing in movies, they got to bite down on something and take a swig of whiskey and pour the whiskey on the wound, and then they get to work and everything like that. What was first of all, give me the statistic again. How many procedures were done? Was it 90%? You said
the statistic is there's 90-some%. I say
more than 90.
I say more than 90 because it's been parsed out and argued about if it's 92 or 95%. Okay, stuff like that.
Okay, is that north and south or just north?
That's, as far as I know, documented for both sides.
Okay, so even in the South, they had access to this.
They had ether.
I tell you, ether's no joke. We tried to make a potato gun once, and they were the directions we found had ether as a propellant.
Oh boy.
And so we made it. We took it out in the woods. We got starter fluid, right? And so we're filling it up and everything like that. And then all of a sudden, we were all kind of like, "Hey, man, I got to sit down." And we like got lightheaded, you know. And it's no joke.
No, and anesthesia had been around since the 1830s,
right?
Because dentists invented it. Because you can't work in someone's mouth if they're, you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So these doctors knew about it.
Okay,
doctors knew anesthesia.
So that's interesting. That comes out of dentistry.
Yeah, that you use it.
I did not know that.
That you use it. You know what I mean? We need it in medical practice. Yeah.
Huh. What were they using back then in the 1830s?
Ether.
It was just ether.
Mm-hmm.
What was the use of ether before that?
I do not know.
Like, how did they discover that would do the trick?
I don't know, honestly.
So then again, when we see in movies, in a Western or something, and someone goes to a dentist and it's like, all right, hold on tight. And then they just start yanking and the person screams and flails. That's bullshit too.
You never say never. I'm sure there were some stuff that was done without anesthesia. It's just that the vast majority of it during the war is done with it.
Okay.
These bullets, I've never tried it, but someone said to me once, go ahead and try to bite a lead bullet.
I did it, and I did it. You get lead on your teeth, and it hurts, you can break them. Just because they're soft doesn't mean
they're not soft to bite.
No.
Hogs with their ravenous, massive jaws, they could chew them up,
Right, sure.
And stuff like that.
But they're chewing machines.
They're chewing machines.
We're not.
We're not.
We're very dainty with our teeth.
There's a pretty famous, I guess, example of Ephraim Dawes, who does undergo a pretty traumatic, surgery on his face with no anesthesia because they don't want to, you're falling asleep. You don't want to block your,
breathing. Airways.
Your airways. So there are instances, of course, where you're not able to use.
Yeah.
Ephraim Dawes, Rufus Dawes, 6 Wisconsin. Ephraim Dawes is his brother.
Okay.
And he's a Western theater officer shot in the jaw crossing a creek during the Atlanta campaign. His coat survives. He was wearing it's drenched in blood. And he had reconstructive surgery on his jaw, which they also could do some rudimentary stuff.
So that's also amazing that they were able to do that.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. The surgery, the procedure, and how he comes out of it. He grows a beard. You can really not tell as much afterwards.
It's not like,
It's a great story about his surgery. He kind of grits and bears through this horrific surgery. At the end, Rufus Dawes is there with him. And his sister there's one of their sisters as well. And he says, we're just going to do 2 more stitches, just 2 more stitches. And Ephraim Dawes, after this traumatic experience, just lifts his finger and says, 1. Just 1.
He's negotiating.
Yes.
That's got to be, the jaw wound is, to me, the most horrifying wound you could get.
Yeah.
And if I ever had received that, I would have been just like, put me out. I don't want to be alive.
Yeah.
Like, how do you live that way?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it impacts so much of what you do on a daily basis.
Everything.
Too. Everything.
But people got to look at you too.
Yeah.
You're never going on a date again after that.
No.
Nope.
You know what's somewhat annoying though?
What?
Every situation I'm in, when Melissa's around, some sort of Wisconsin connection. Dawes, Rufus in the 6 Wisconsin, because she's from Wisconsin. I get
you gotta bring it in.
Sick of Wisconsin.
Great state.
You've had your fill of Wisconsin.
I've had my fill of Wisconsin, and yet it comes up again and
You
again.
can't help that they were so great.
They were a hearty lot, those
They were.
Wisconsin boys.
Yeah.
Western guys.
And cheese.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Well, I think
good stuff.
Dawes is from Ohio.
Yeah, I know.
But still, it's enough Wisconsin. Okay.
forget Wisconsin.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the museum now. Let's talk about what are you working on now and what do you have planned for the future? What are you heading towards with the museum?
Well,
a lot.
A whole lot. We just redesigned the member magazine, as Melissa pointed out earlier. and the website is getting
Correct.
redesigned.
Yeah.
Good.
But the big news, it's all big news, but we are in the process of completely redesigning the actual museum.
Now, is this going to require you move out like they did way back when? Or?
We don't think so. We think we're going to be able to do it sort of gallery or galleries at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to do this in phases over a couple of years.
That's smart.
And try to keep the museum open. But really, in large part, the museum has not changed since 2000 when it opened. Sort of the stories that it tells. Some exhibits have changed, etc. But there's been a huge change in the historiography of the Civil War, and we haven't even talked about how the medical aspect of the conflict kind of kicks in as social revolution with African American surgeons and ambulance drivers. And women volunteering as nurses and in hospitals.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
That's what I mean when I said the medical story, you start to understand how sucked in the whole country was.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to keep our old, we're not trying, we are keeping our old stories, the stories we've been telling, and adding more. So, for example, right now, the first gallery in the museum is about recruiting. And where did soldiers come from, and the problems with these guys not getting good physical exams, etc. Well, when it's over, when we're done with this redesign, it's not going to be just about soldiers recruiting. It's about how this medical crisis really pulls in so many people, soldiers, women, African Americans, the whole thing.
Right.
Civilians,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're all recruited in a way to try to help manage this. The Civil War sees this internal war, which is horrible, and this massive outbreak of disease, like a pandemic almost among the soldiery, and a huge refugee crisis with the African Americans that were enslaved. I still think it's our worst internal refugee crisis. We've never seen.
It has to be
4 million people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
4 million enslaved people, or
It's amazing that we actually survived the war, even with the Union victory, like that we were able to continue on because it was such a mess.
Right.
And we haven't even talked about stuff like were at the time the contraband hospitals or the refugee hospitals that are established to try to take care of the formerly enslaved, because they go into camps too, and disease sweeps through those camps just like the military camps,
Right.
and kills hundreds of thousands of African Americans.
It's just death and disease everywhere.
Yeah.
And we're bringing in the story of those refugee camps. That's a medical crisis.
Right.
How do you handle that? Not all that well in some cases. They didn't do. They did and they didn't. They were given the second shrift kind of in many cases. But that's an example, this first gallery, of how we're broadening the story. We're the National Museum of Civil War Medicine. We really want to tell a national story.
That
The
makes sense.
only museum of Civil War medicine.
Yeah. Are you really?
Yes.
The only one?
The only one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just the
Another little
story of Civil War
catchphrase is
medicine. Yeah.
we are the Civil War's most unique museum.
Obviously, you're the only one.
I love going to Civil War museums of any stripe. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
But when you come to our museum, you're not going to, you're going to learn about something different, the whole different system. And it's the only place you can really, really do that.
Which really, the more I learn about it, the more I find it to be probably the most important aspect of the Civil War, because of all the things that we stated before, what came out of it.
Right.
But also, this is how a lot of people that would have died didn't die.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's the amount of civilians that pour into that field in order to help.
Yep.
Just it's an all-encompassing subject, and to me, it kind of
I think
Like the armies are the
I think
titular
that's
part of
very-
the whole
well,
thing.
You don't get civilians in military strategy or tactics.
no,
right?
no.
But this is a chance for them to be involved. It pulls the entire country into
It does.
this war.
Well, now that we're talking, that you mentioned civilians, Grant from the audience, he says, which civilians had the biggest effect on Civil War medicine and were most helpful to the army? So we talked about how helpful people were but how about, were there any civilians who developed or discovered or invented something besides the ambulance? Well, that wasn't even a civilian. So something that the army adopted and used in the medical.
Well, I think that as much as an individual, organizationally, like the Sanitary Commission,
Yeah.
and there's a number of the Sanitary Commission is the United States Sanitary Commission is the biggest and best known. The Confederacy had a lot of smaller organizations that did similar work. And there are smaller organizations like the Patriotic Daughters of Lancaster, for example. Those are the civilians that volunteer as nurses, provide food and nourishment, and keep pressure on the government to do a better job. So sort of structurally, it's easier to point it out than an individual, I believe.
Yeah, okay.
The way that these civilians step in, like these volunteer nurses, they're incalculably important.
Yeah.
Incalculably. They help people survive by, even most nurses aren't traditionally, like we call them nurses, they may come here, like the Sanitary Commission had a huge headquarters near the railroad depot in Frederick, or Gettysburg, excuse me. They set this big area up to feed guys that were being let out of the hospitals and being shipped on the railroad to general hospitals. They provided those guys with clean food, good food, clean clothes, water, nourishment. Those guys, it helped them survive.
Yeah.
Right? And they're stepping in when the military, the armies are just not able to handle it all. These civilian organizations, these aid organizations. Seminary Ridge Hospital is the Patriotic Daughters of Lancaster are there, helping make, thousands of meals. And so that's how I look at the role of the civilians instead of one person in particular.
Yeah.
It's
all.
I'm trying to think here now.
Yeah, there are numbers of stories of individuals like that.
Yeah. So
not to bring it back to Wisconsin, but I will. Cordelia Harvey, who was the former First Lady of Wisconsin. Yeah. Well, I can't help it that it's a great state.
The former First Lady of Wisconsin.
Correct.
Oh my
well,
God.
her husband, Lewis Harvey, is the governor of Wisconsin.
Right.
And he goes down after Shiloh to help the soldiers, bring supplies to them. And on his return trip, slips into the water trying to get onto the boat and is killed. She's the First Lady of Wisconsin for 90 days.
Oh.
But she takes that role seriously. This is 1862. She takes it seriously for the rest of the war. The new governor appoints her to the one of the commissions there. She goes to the hospitals. She sees that some of the conditions are not great. And if these soldiers could get into hospitals closer to home or away from the war front, they could survive. She literally goes to talk to Lincoln about this idea. He's at first not interested in it. He's concerned about desertion. He doesn't want to offer this as a solution, but she convinces him.
Yeah.
And so she creates a soldier's home up in Wisconsin where these men are taken to, and they have a better survival rate. They don't desert. And then, honestly, after the war, she comes home with some of these orphaned children now and turns that soldier's home into a home
orphanage.
for children.
That's a really
That's
good.
another thing, is the orphans.
Yeah. Well, it's a Wisconsin story, but it's a good one. No, but you make a really good point because there's also Dorothea Dix.
Clara Barton.
Clara Barton.
Yeah. How can I forget Clara Barton?
Of course.
But I still think like the whole is bigger than the individual parts. Like,
I think so
like
too.
in the Crimea, going back to that, there's like Florence Nightingale.
Yeah.
And you don't know, there's like this one person And in this country, in America, there's like Clara Barton and Dorothea Dix, but I'm sorry, the Wisconsin one.
Cordelia Harvey.
Cordelia Harvey. But it's organizationally, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one great thing about these people is that there are a number of biographies of Clara Barton that are written that are good. But a lot of these nurses write memoirs, you know, and you can get them and read them. Like Cornelia Hancock is one of my favorite nurses. She wrote, you could find like South After Gettysburg. You were talking about training. You know, this is Cornelia Hancock is this young Quaker teenager. No, she's in her 20s when she sneaks away from her Quaker community to nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, at Brandy Station Winter Encampment, she talks about how they brought a wounded cavalryman in, and she's been serving since Gettysburg at that point. And they amputated his leg, and they gave it to the surgeons to practice on, the amputated limb. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And these are some of the things that they're experiencing. So I guess redressing that question, if you had one civilian in America you would have to pick, it would probably be Clara Barton. Although all the people love Clara Barton, but Clara Barton.
Right. Now endorsed by a Pulitzer Prize winner. Do you like coffee?
I can't really drink coffee.
Why not? You don't like the taste of it?
No, caffeine.
Oh, I hear you. But you used to drink coffee.
I have drank coffee.
Too bad this wasn't around back in the day when you drank coffee.
Right.
Because you would have enjoyed this. This is our coffee. It's called Little Ground Top. It's roasted right here in Gettysburg at 82 Steinware Avenue, Bantam Roasters. You can go in anytime. You can get a bag whenever you want. Smell that, though, Edda. Isn't that wonderful?
It smells
It does
really
smell
good.
really nice,
Yes,
doesn't it?
It does.
You could just keep a bag of this in your living room just for the smell, right?
Yeah.
But you got to get it ground first. You know, they could do it in whole bean or ground. You can get it ground if you want it for drip coffee or a French press, whatever. It's just fantastic. You could also buy it online if you, when you get back home to Pittsburgh and you decide, oh, my friend loves coffee. Oh, I just heard about this Little Ground Top. Well, you go to addressinggettysburg.com/cafe and you can order it there and get it, and you don't ever have to set foot in Gettysburg again. Not that you wouldn't want to, because, you know, and not that we don't want you to. We love having you here, so you come back as often as you want. But yeah, Little Ground Top. So 82 Steinware Avenue, Bantam Roasters here in Gettysburg, or addressinggettysburg.com/cafe.
I think she's great. And we administer the Clara Barton Missing Soldiers Office.
Right.
But she's one of many. You know what I mean?
Sure.
She's a good marketer for herself as well. You know, Chamberlain after the war, right? Joshua Chamberlain markets his veteran status.
Right.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She markets her status.
Yeah.
So we know about her. We know a lot about her and the good stuff
But there were others.
There were
Agreed.
others.
There's
in
a
her
lot of those
position.
civilian
Yeah.
stories that,
Yeah.
right. They're
Right.
not.
And there's some we'll
part
never
of
know
the
because they
lore.
just didn't
Yeah.
write about the stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
like, you know.
But I think you raise a good point, though. Like the government, for whatever reason, couldn't do all the things that needed to be done for these men.
Right.
And so the civilians stepped up
Yes.
and filled those voids, whatever
Yeah.
they were.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because you have the Sanitary Commission, you have the Christian Commission, right? I'm
The
sure
Christian
that they
Commission, which they help more with the inner man, if you will.
Right. But
they
that's,
still do stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's mental health.
Yeah.
And they still help. They do what I'm not, besmirching them. Yes.
But I'm saying it's all those things, because a man is the physical and the inner,
yeah.
right? And he needs all of that to be nursed to health
There's
again.
some great photos of these, commission camps and stuff that are taken. If you look at the Library of Congress site, the big kitchens they had set up. And everything.
Yeah.
And I think too, the soldiers just appreciated knowing that people cared enough to do that.
Right. Because the history of soldiers clearly was that you weren't getting that care.
Yeah.
So our guys probably felt, both sides probably felt really good that their people were giving them the care that they needed.
Yes. And so I guess I got us off the museum track, but
That's okay. We'll get back on it.
that was a good question.
Yeah.
And
Oh, so you're talking about the things that you're covering in the museum?
Oh, yeah.
And the renovation.
So a lot of what we just talked about is what we're covering.
Good.
We're going to cover stuff like the nurses, the civilian components.
One thing you mentioned before, and I'm wondering if there's something on this in the future museum, the opioid crisis, because I think that's very relatable to today.
Yes.
The difference is back then they didn't know about it.
No.
Now we do, and we still have one because doctors again.
Well, you know Carolyn Ivanoff.
I do know. Yes.
Okay. Do you know that she is a drug dealer?
Oh God, Carolyn,
well,
we
let's
love you. We love
okay,
you,
let's.
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Did you know
that? But you know what? She'd make a great one because you wouldn't expect or suspect her, right?
So Carolyn, for those of you who don't know, is a avid living historian. She does a great portrayal of Clara Barton.
Oh, Clara Barton. That's
and we could probably mention her in a little bit about relation of what's going on at Clara Barton, Missing Soldiers Office. But she recently donated to the museum a bottle of opium balls or pills. They look like little chocolate Count Chocula.
Yeah.
In a Philadelphia laboratory bottle. The Philadelphia lab made medicine for the United States Army in the Civil War. And we're going to have an exhibit that will show the opium and also talk about the crisis of pain.
There's a lot of really great research coming out about that. Dr. Jonathan Jones is publishing a book later this year. We're going to have him at the museum in our speaker series, and he's going to have a book signing. I think he's there November 1st. He has done a lot of great research about the opioid crisis after the war. Just fascinating stuff about how these men were just sent home, and not just with this physical dependence, but this real stigma attached to them that made it doubly worse.
What? Because stigma because they were addicted, or
because they're
because
addicted,
they were mangled.
They're the home. They're supposed to be men. They're the home. They whatever, bring the bread home. They're the caretakers of.
Well, so that brings me to PTSD, because some guys who weren't wounded came home scrambled eggs in their head. And completely physically fine, and they weren't able to be the man, as they say, because they were completely ruined. Absolutely. So what about anything about PTSD?
Yeah, we'll definitely be covering PTSD too.
Nurses suffer from it too. With female nurses.
You better believe they did. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch Deadwood? Questions? No, but you mentioned it last time we were here.
Okay, yeah.
I should have gone home and watched it.
I started binging it again the other night because it's so good. But maybe not for history, but it's just a fun.
Yeah, I'll have
watch.
to watch it. It sounds like it would be good. But
I'm a big Timothy Oliphant fan.
Okay,
and then I forget the guy's name, but the guy who plays like the town heavy.
Okay,
Al Swearingen. What the hell is his name? It's on the tip of my tongue. Well, whatever. He's really good too.
Okay,
and I don't know. There's just something because it's gross. It's like
what's the connection to medicine?
Well, so there's I think this is what I talked about last time. There's a scene where the doc in the town, he was an army surgeon during the war, and he's a terrible drunk. Yeah. And there's a lot of, I forget what's going on in town, but there's a stressful situation and he's drinking a lot, and they show him, we get a glimpse into his private life in this one episode when he's in his house. Ian McShane is the guy's name, and Powers Booth is the other guy who's good in it. But we see him in his house, and he's just drunk, and he's like on the floor, crying and screaming to God. What was that all for? Why'd you make them do that? And he keeps repeating, these poor boys crying, mommy, and it's just like when you, I don't know why, but that always punches me in the gut, the mommy stuff or mother or whatever. It's the worst. So, but I think that's just a little nod to like what these guys went through, and the nurses. Because I mean, how can you see that day in and day out? And it's like, okay, you're a soldier. You see your buddy get blown up next to you or whatever. It does something to you.
Absolutely.
You move on from that battlefield. You're in camp for a while, and you all have experienced it together, and you have your downtime to kind of joke about it or do whatever you can to work through it, right? As much as you can. A nurse, it's just constant, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be a constant flow of misery.
Yeah.
You should read like Walt Whitman,
yeah.
served as a volunteer nurse, and he was at Armory Square Hospital in D.C. And especially after the Overland campaign fighting begins, the Wilderness Battle of the Wilderness.
Yeah.
The steamboats are coming in. These guys, again, it's a messy step forward. These guys are in bad shape.
Sure.
And Whitman's like, the wounds are terrible. The amputations are terrible. They had to do some like secondary amputations when, because they were hurrying, and
so they didn't do a good enough job the first time.
Good enough job. They had to redo it. And they're coming up in the clothes they were shot in. You know what I mean? They're just a mess.
Yeah.
And, to see those guys come in the hospitals, you're right. And it's got to be, it's like, I try to mention, even though it's a diminishing cultural reference, the TV show MASH.
Yeah.
That's Letterman Stage 2.
Right.
That's a field hospital.
Right.
And you see, those episodes where those guys come in, they're just all bloody and shredded, and they go to work, and you hear the clink as the shrapnel's taken out.
Yeah.
That's what's going on in some of these Civil War hospitals too.
Yeah.
You just reminded me of something else, and it completely flew out of my head as soon as you said it. What did you say right before MASH? What were you talking about?
Diminishing cultural reference.
Oh, so
I can't remember.
No, I got it now. Something that you said earlier, just before that, reminded me of. I watched like a lot of body cam and dash cam footage with police.
Yeah.
And there was this one, it was this gunfight in like a suburban neighborhood.
Yeah.
This guy's barricaded in his garage,
Right.
and these two cops are behind a cruiser backed into the driveway across the street, and they're shooting across the street at him. This guy's got like a rifle, and they've got pistols. I think one of them actually pulled a rifle out of the car, so they're kind of replying. But both guys get hit in the leg. Both officers get hit in the leg. And so we're seeing their body cams, and and so you get to see the other guy, and they have tourniquets on them, so they're putting the tourniquets on, but they're still fighting, and they're waiting for backup to arrive, but backup can't get there. I mean, they can get there, but like they can't get into position and rescue them.
Yeah.
They can't extract them immediately.
Oof.
And so it's this big, but you hear all the physical, you hear it in the breathing, you can hear it in their voices, you can hear it in them commenting on what's going on. And it really gives you kind of some pretty good insight into what it's like for these soldiers when they're hit and, they're not off the line, or even if they are off the line, just the things that your body goes through when it's going into shock and everything. So that's what it reminded me of. Anyway, so back to the museum. So we've got all these new exhibits. You're covering all these topics that are, I think, really important to people today. And I love that you're doing that, because it's showing us that everything old is new again, right? We're going through the same thing today with the opioid. They went through opioid crisis.
Right.
People have PTSD today. They have it then. The thing is, now we know more about these things. We know how to treat these things better. They didn't know that stuff back then. Look how far we've come. I love the look how far we come approach to history.
Yes.
Because I think there's no point in studying it if you don't look at it that way. Because
What
otherwise,
can we learn today?
because otherwise everything's just misery.
Right.
Like history is just sad.
Well, and we have a really good design firm, Healy Kohler, out of D.C. is working with us. They did the Adams County Historical Society. If you've been there, same design firm. So tomorrow, actually, David Price, executive director, and Melissa and I are meeting with Rachel Moses, our director of collections, to kind of, this is an ongoing thing. We're still in the design phase.
Can I give you an idea?
Yeah.
All right. And this is going to sound like I'm trying to be funny, but I'm not. I don't know what you would call it. Well, like the concept of smell-o-vision, but no vision, just smells. So ACHS, they've got sights and sounds. In that Beyond the Battle thing.
They do that at Ben Lomond too.
Do they?
Yes.
So you go in and smell what a hospital smelled like.
Yes, they have.
We're trying to do some of that
aromas
stuff.
of gangrene, stuff like
blood and rot and bowel. Ugh,
I you got to be careful how much you do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't want to repel people.
But don't you though? You don't want to repel them from your museum, but you want to repel them. I think we should all try to repel them to war or from war.
Right.
Like, that's what I'm saying.
You know what?
I get you.
Isn't it kind of awful that you and I and Melissa, we're making a living off the backs of people that went through hell? And that's something that I always think about when I go to work. This is why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here. I put food on my table because 750,000 Americans died.
Right.
And untold thousands more suffered debilitating injuries until they died.
Right.
You know, and I'm getting a little preachy here, but that's why we do what we do.
Right.
Is try to make people aware of that.
And draw the connections
recognize
to
the
today
horror.
too.
Yeah.
And David Price is really big on bringing it to the present day at our museum, and also in the magazine too. We've incorporated a column with an Army historian talking about how do we practice military medicine today, battlefield medicine. I mean, one of the first column that we had was talking about the tourniquet use. You know, it's a revolution. It saves, people's lives. But now new technologies have come in. Maybe we don't need to use the tourniquet.
I had no idea the tourniquets were so controversial.
Really?
Yeah.
It's still an evolving regulatory practice.
You can actually lose a limb because if you leave it on too long, if you're not trained, you know what I mean?
Okay. So what do they want you to do? Shove a tampon in there?
Well, they have other now.
What are they saying?
A lot of times they have pressure bandages or something like that, where you can stop the bleeding easier, but you don't lose a limb.
Yeah,
but there's documented cases of Civil War guys that lives were saved with tourniquets too.
Oh yeah,
so,
absolutely. And that's what I mean. The technology evolves and changes. And
but it's
speaking of tourniquets,
and when they study the stuff, the tourniquet stuff today, they go back to the Civil War too. They go that far back and say, okay, how was it used at the time?
And it's obviously it did enough good.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's a gray area a little bit.
In the movies, they always say, somebody gets wounded, they go, "Get me a tourniquet."
Right.
How readily available were tourniquets to a soldier on the line?
Well, not on the line, but the hospital stewards' knapsacks that they would carry had tourniquets. They also had these things called medicine wagons that were like ambulances outfitted with drawers and shelves.
Sure.
That Letterman also had a hand in developing, and those were like rolling pharmacies, and they had like extra tourniquets in there too.
Okay.
They didn't have.
Or they
so it's not like they had them in their packs.
They were trained to do it with a stick and cloth. Or,
I mean they had.
Yeah,
they didn't have enough for every guy, but they were equipped with them. Yes.
As far as smell-o-vision goes, people say do it.
Okay.
Same person also says we're not living off their backs, telling the story and the truth. The veterans would be happy. I would hope so.
That's a good. Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't trying to be negative.
No, I know.
I was just trying to say that that's a motivator for me.
Yeah.
To do as good a job as I can.
Now, at first, it was fun for me to do this because I love just learning about the history and everything. But then again, it was that like point after 40. It was probably 41 or something where it really hit me that like this is a very real thing that happened. And though that whole generation is long gone and their grandchildren are long gone. Right. We have people today who are going through this stuff.
Yeah.
And so just because it was black and white back then and nobody saw in color doesn't mean that those stories aren't relevant because humanity doesn't change in 160 years.
No.
It's all the same thing. It's all the same sadness. It's all the same pain. And I would say in many, many ways, they had it worse because they didn't have the help that we have today. So again, look how far we've come.
Yes.
But also be grateful. For, what bothers me, and this is probably why I do this more than anything. I can't stand the zombie American. The one who's just is completely unaware that the world existed before he or she was born. And just has no, and then you give them some little 5 little facts about something, and they go, my brain hurts, and then they can't even listen to the rest of them, and you had like 6 more to go.
Right.
And that drives me insane because they think it's boring. And my whole thing is, your teachers were boring.
Right.
The subject isn't. And that what you guys are doing with the museum is a very much, I call it a Mattian way of thinking, which is you have to make it entertaining, you have to make it engaging,
Right.
Yes.
but not at the expense of the horror of the story
Right.
and the honor that
Right.
these people should have from us.
Right.
You know, you're doing it in a way because you have to reach people where they are, and where the modern American is today is somewhere in between a nose picker and I don't know. The average person walking around that isn't already in this world that we're in, they still think George Washington fought here.
Yeah.
So,
no, right.
You know, and that's what I'm talking about. Those are the people we have to reach.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the challenge of a lot of museums, you know, but, you know, like to reach that common denominator and make them understand you're benefiting from.
That's why I want to like seriously sit down one day and see if we can come up with some out of the box ideas for videos to do, like team up and do together, because you're dealing with medical, which is like a growing obsession of mine. And my whole thing is like, you know, punch them in the face. And so maybe, you know, you don't want to repel people from the museum with the smells. Like you got to be careful. But maybe, I knew what you were saying. You don't want to overdo it. Is what you're saying.
But I think we've talked about it.
Yeah.
So.
But even if you don't do it, whatever, you don't want to overdo is my point. And but I do. So maybe we could work on something, and I'll put it on my channel, and then that way I'll look like the monster.
Yeah, we can do stuff. Yeah,
You know?
I mean, I think
that's a great idea.
There's some things we can do for sure.
I do too. And I get you guys have the mindset of people who are trying to innovate and not do things as they've been doing them since 1960.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good. Because I'm getting sick of the 1960 way of things.
Yeah.
Boring as hell. All right. Anything else you want anybody to know about the museum?
I do want to mention our other sites that we operate. Our main museum is in Frederick that's undergoing this. And I'm not sure when we're going to start construction. This could take a little bit.
Yeah.
But we're
hoping for later this year.
At design phasing.
Yeah.
And I also want to say, I don't want to name names, but I have really been heartwarmed, seriously, by the people that I know who have contributed significantly to the museum recently. Financially,
good.
Loaning stuff that's really helping make the story richer.
Good.
And
that means you're onto something good.
I want to publicly thank, without naming, because I don't want to, you know, but a number of people have reached out. And, well, I'm going to give you one example because I know he would be cool with this. Phil Spoggy, who was recently on here.
Yeah, I know Phil, yeah.
Phil Spoggy's wife works at a bookstore, used an old bookstore.
Okay.
And about a year ago, since I came on board, obviously, he was at the bookstore and he was flipping through this 4th Iowa Cavalry regimental history. And there was all this stuff pasted in it. And it belonged to a guy named Jehoiada Worth, 4th Iowa Cavalry.
Great name.
Jehoiada Worth. Jehoiada Worth was shot in the head in 1862 in a skirmish near Helena, Arkansas. Okay? He recovered from that and will continue to serve. But
can you imagine getting shot in the head and then going back?
No.
And so Phil was looking through this book, and there's an envelope from a surgeon, a doctor in San Diego.
Okay.
And you open the envelope, and out came this, like 2 playing cards put together.
Yeah.
Sized X-ray of this Jehoiada's Worth skull, done in 1915, 13, something like that.
Yeah, around there.
And the slug is still embedded in his skull.
Really?
Yeah.
And some of the earliest X-rays were used on veterans for this reason.
Sure.
And Phil.
Wait, that's in there. Hold on.
Oh, yeah, I saw that in there.
And so Phil.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, there's the X-ray.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see there's a
bullet.
There's like a
right
black.
there.
Yeah, it's probably a pistol slug or something like that.
Oh, that looks in a very uncomfortable position.
And it's still embedded in there. And you can see he's got something in his mouth to hold his head still.
Yeah.
To bite down on.
Dentures. He's got dentures.
Or something. And so Phil and I are friends, and he's like, hey, do you guys want this? And we said, yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're going to use that when we redo the exhibits.
That's so cool.
In our post-war section.
Oh, and he was from Grierson's Raiders, which is what the Horse Soldiers is based on. Is that right? It says right there.
It might be.
Yeah.
4th Iowa Cav. And the
4th Iowa, I think, was one of the ones in the movie too. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
And
there was some Iowa.
And the surgeon the doctor that took the X-ray is an early X-ray specialist in San Diego.
Okay,
pretty cool
so it's
story.
like an early X-ray. So yeah, there's a lot of history in that.
And so that's just one example of how people have, helped us out and are continuing to do so, and we really appreciate it.
Well, I know,
and we appreciate you. And I'm going to say why. Because one of our other sites is the Clara Barton Missing Soldiers office in D.C.
Correct.
I don't know where we are in time. Do I have time to just
go?
At Digital History Pioneers Foundation, we are about grassroots history on digital platforms. That means we are about podcasters, documentarians, YouTubers, and even TikTokers. All of these creators are out there trying to share their love of history with the public. They don't need ideas, they need funding, both from viewers and corporate donors. DH Pioneer's initial funding focus is on the Civil War era, with a special emphasis on the Addressing Gettysburg podcast. So be a vital part of the unique content Addressing Gettysburg has in store by donating at dhpioneers.com and help bring your love of history to the people. Digital History Pioneers is an IRS Section 501c3 approved charitable corporation that makes any donation tax deductible to the fullest extent of the law.
So that's on 7th Street.
Notice how he's concerned about time when he's about to say something nice about me. Right? Well, I didn't care about time at all about Phil or anything.
That's why I was like, Melissa, don't use it all with Wisconsin stories. But anyway, we are opening an exhibit there.
Yes.
This Saturday. Oh, boy. And we are working with Ron Coddington of Military Images Magazine.
Yep.
Now, the Clara Barton Missing Soldiers office is where Clara Barton ran her humanitarian efforts during the Civil War.
Right. If you guys watch AG Today, they came on a couple weeks ago and talked about that.
And so it was lost to history. And in 1996, Richard Lyons, a GSA employee, rediscovered it, which is a fascinating story.
It is.
And it was saved from demolition. And it was restored. And that was where she ran her humanitarian efforts and her post-war efforts to try to help families locate missing soldiers. So we are opening an exhibit this Saturday, working with Ron Coddington of Military Images, of 20 full-size,
6 feet tall.
6 feet tall.
Very tall women back then.
Yeah.
Life size.
Life size, but these images of these nurses with their stories.
Yes.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's
really cool. And it's going to be there through September.
Mm-hmm.
You can go there and see all these nurses in great detail and learn their stories. And you, Addressing Gettysburg, is one of our sponsors.
That is correct. You're right.
You've helped sponsor us.
We're grateful for it, yes.
Well, I'm happy to do it.
And we should mention our other sponsors.
And by the way, I'm only able to do it because of the people watching at this very moment, the patrons, because they contribute to
patrons.
every cent that I have to spend.
But thank you, Matt,
Yes,
and patrons
welcome.
for helping. And our other sponsors.
Our other sponsors are the Center for Civil War Photography.
Nice.
And American Battlefield Trust.
Good.
Tom Lillenquist, who is a collector and owns a lot of the images that he donates to the Library of Congress, and they are used some of them are used in our exhibit. And then Civil War Trails as well.
Nice. Very good.
And Melissa has done probably 70% of the work on this thing. She's done a tremendous amount.
Well done.
To get this thing off the ground. I don't know why I broke it down by percent, because she's, but she's done a tremendous amount of work to get this planned and executed, because we have so much going on. And so
very exciting.
That's going to open Saturday.
So, and that's it's the exhibit at the museum in Frederick, or is that at the Clara Barton?
It's at Clara Barton.
It's at Clara Barton, which is where?
437 7th Street Northwest in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. And so eventually the exhibit is there through September.
September 1st, correct.
And then we believe it will travel to our main location.
Mm-hmm.
But we've already had interest from someone else that wants it to travel to.
Oh,
which
nice.
is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very
Very
cool.
excited
And so we're
about
hoping
it,
that this may travel out.
Do you remember when you were on the live show? What date that was? Off the top of your head? It was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago. I could look at my calendar.
Yeah, if you can, for the people watching at home, we talk about this museum and how it was discovered. All the stuff in it was discovered, which is, I think, it's out of a movie almost.
Yeah.
Right? It's like almost like the Goonies.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Goonies.
How it was discovered?
Yeah, how it was discovered.
Well, I'll tell you very briefly.
Okay.
Richard Lyons is sent to this building to check it for make sure there's no explosives like propane tanks, vagrants. They're going to seal it up and then demo it. So Richard Lyons is his name. He's on the 3rd floor, and he's in the room we believe Clara Barton stayed in, her bedroom. And he hears a noise out on the street. And he turns to look out the window. And as he turns and moves toward the window, he thinks someone has tapped him on the shoulder. He feels something touch his shoulder. This is how he told it. So he turns around. There's no one there. But he kind of glances upward because he's like, where'd that come from? And in this ruined room, from hanging down at this ruined ceiling is an envelope. And he's like, what's that? And he pulls the envelope down and it says Edward Shaw. Addressed to Edward Shaw at that address. He's like, who's Edward Shaw? What's this? And there's a small little cubby hole opening in the ceiling there, kind of. And he gets a ladder, climbs the ladder, and he's padding around. It's very dark in there. And he touches something metallic and he pulls it out. And it's a metal sign on which is painted Clara Barton, Missing Soldiers Office, Room 9.
So crazy.
Yeah.
And he knew who Clara Barton was.
Yeah.
He's like, well, what is this? So he kept exploring up there, and there's all kind of stuff. We have some of was found exhibited in the museum, a pile of bloody socks that we believe she was collecting to clean and send back out. And in the war ended, and she didn't need to do that. Her camp stove that she used. Her camp
stove, yeah.
Which we have in our museum.
It's amazing how it's just all left there.
I often wonder that
she moved on,
Yeah.
and Edward Shaw, it was a boarding house.
Okay.
She rented a bunch of rooms in the boarding house. He was a boarder there, her friend and a co-worker at the pension office. And when she left, he said, I'll do you a solid, and there's a bunch of stuff in those rooms. I'll just shove it in the attic for you.
Yeah, his stuff. Some of his
Okay.
stuff too is up there, and it's on display. But she comes back to the United States and lives in Maryland.
Yeah.
I often wonder why she didn't go back
Get
and
her
get
stuff.
Yeah.
But that was in 1990 something?
18.
Yeah.
Oh,
when it
Richard
was discovered.
1996. Yes.
96. So all that stuff sat up in the. What was that building used for between when she left?
Well, they kind of rejiggered it now and again, and the reason it was sealed off is because fire code laws changed, and it was too hard for those rooms to meet code.
Okay.
So the owner at the time just said, we're just going to seal it off and not use it for anything.
The third floor.
The third floor.
So the first floor was used as sort of a store
Right.
front. The middle of the second floor was used for office space, and the third floor was mostly used for boarding house. And so when the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, that fire happened, and then the city started changing codes for fire safety, that's when they just sealed off the third floor. So they continued to use the first and second floor, but
It's
not
amazing.
the third.
That's such a cool story.
And then it's so all this stuff was sealed up in there, and her camp stove's nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty
It's her
cool.
camp stove.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's still got soot inside of it, and it has all its accoutrements, its little
I know.
boiling kettles, and
It's
its
like,
pot. It has a telescoping chimney, and I believe Brigadier General Daniel Rucker was good buddies with her. Daniel Rucker was the commander of the Washington Depot.
Okay.
He will develop an ambulance, a good one, the Rucker ambulance, which is also produced later in the war.
Okay.
He gives her that stove because she writes a letter. He gives her that stove in 63, 64, because in the winter of 63, 64, she writes a letter to her friend. I'm in my tent. It's blustering outside, but I'm staying warm by my little chimney stove that General Rucker gave me.
Huh. And it's all just sitting up there all this time.
Sitting up there.
I don't know why the soot
I know.
tickles me.
Soot's
Me too.
crazy.
Yeah.
I saw that soot and I'm like,
That's
Man.
her last fire.
Yeah.
She's cooking
that
food.
stove.
It's nuts.
It is, and it's such an innocuous thing. We, I have a wood burning stove at home, and nobody cares to go look at my soot.
No.
right? But because it's hers and it sat there untouched for all these years,
Yeah.
it's like, it's so
really
cool.
it's cool.
It's
And
such
so
a great story.
Yeah.
we have the Clara Barton Missing Soldiers Office. We run, and we have a good site manager down there, Madeline Thompson.
Correct.
I almost forgot her name. Don't listen to this, Madeline. And then we also help the National Park Service interpret the Pry Hospital site on the Antietam battlefield, the Pry Farm Hospital site. We used to be in the house. The house is getting some work done. So this season, the house won't be open, but the barn will. We will be in the barn exhibiting in there. And that was a 500-person hospital for the Second Corps.
And you never could buy Camp Letterman for us, could you?
I wish. Yeah.
I don't even like looking at it.
It's
I know,
so
it's-
The
gross.
site.
I mean, that's not Gettysburg proper. That's Strabane Township. Strabane Township is, pardon my French, it's the used up whore of this area. Like, it's just.
That's the exact word I was going to use.
Is it really?
I just want to say whore on TV. It's a used up whore. Pennsylvania.
Yeah, well, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
No, but that area is, and that's where obviously it's where Walmart is. All the box stores and chain restaurants are.
It's ugly. That strip.
Yeah, it's horrendous.
Vape shops. It's ugly. It's ugly. It's ugly out that way. Sorry. I come to Gettysburg. I spend a lot of money here. I come here a lot. I like it.
Yep.
That strip is not attractive.
It's at the junction of two big highways. So, that's where the ugliness always starts. As long as it doesn't spread west of Gettysburg or south or north. But the problem is they've got. Strabane has allowed solar farms. They've allowed these 3,000 unit cookie cutter neighborhoods, over 55 communities, and they're just ugly. It's a blight, and it's just destroyed that whole area up there.
Yeah.
But Camp Letterman to me is such a heartbreak that no one over however many years couldn't raise the money to do it. I know people have tried. But it's a shame.
Maybe
it's sad.
Camp Letterman will be like the Chantilly of preservation,
Just
where
one marker.
Well, no, people are like, we need to look at the medical sites, and maybe there's some other things.
Yeah, but it's gone.
Well, but it will inspire people. Like
hopefully,
the destruction of
Chantilly.
Chantilly.
I see what you're saying. Made people go, we can't do this to others.
Yeah, we don't want to. No, this isn't. We don't want to see this happen to this.
Yeah, no.
But
Possibly.
Camp Letterman was unique because it was sort of a tent general hospital site. And,
right by a train.
Most of the general hospitals are permanent structures, most of them. But that was an unusual site for the biggest battle of the Civil War.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shame.
Yeah.
And just because, it's named after Letterman and the innovator that he was.
Yeah. And it really, the field was there.
Imagery of it,
Yeah.
so you have people's interest in it too.
And, apparently at certain times of year, you could still see the depressions where they buried the guys and stuff. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's evidence.
And some of the historic tree lines at Edge that are still there.
Yeah,
I know.
right.
Yeah, I know.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
But we need that Aldi.
Yeah.
Or
I
Aldi.
hate to see any historical. I mean, I know it's impossible to say everything, but it's just always heartbreaking to me to see that stuff go.
This is where I have such a problem. I'm torn because I'm definitely a guy who likes to look forward and think of what are we going to do next, right?
Yeah.
Where are we going?
Right.
So I'm getting bored with where we are. Where are we going?
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, I love history, and I think preserving historical sites is important, especially significant. Well, it's not that Camp Letterman itself was so significant that there was no other site like that in the entire war or anything, or there weren't sites that were more significant or more interesting.
Right.
But it's because it's attached to Gettysburg, and because of who Jonathan Letterman was, and the things that the triage system and the other systems that he put in place that they use around the world in civilian and military life today. That's why it should have been preserved.
And Jonathan Letterman is sort of an unknown American personality hero,
which is terrible.
Yeah,
we should make him
right. And the fact that he was never at Camp Letterman, I don't think personally,
right.
But it bore his name, which would help bring him some name recognition.
Sure.
Yeah.
Although he's adapting what the Europeans do, but that's still consequential. Right?
But he's adapting what they do, but he's the one doing it here.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
He's still consequential. And Hammond kind of got pushed aside. So once he's gone, Letterman loses his top cover.
Yeah.
He's out.
Right.
Letterman will end up the war as the supervisor of hospitals in the Department of Susquehanna, which is around York.
Oh, yeah.
Backwater area.
Yeah.
And then he'll resign from the military, dies fairly young after the war in San Francisco. So he's not around
to write his history.
Yeah,
he's not around to speak,
Exactly.
to help publicize
A lot
what
of
he
people
did.
aren't around to write their history.
Yeah.
like Chamberlain.
Even if they were, they couldn't write like
Yes,
Chamberlain.
Exactly.
Right.
Guys,
exactly.
Thank you very much for doing
Thank
this.
you.
Great. Best of luck with
Thank you.
the museum and everything. And I am going to get down there
Yeah.
sooner than later. I'm making a point to do these things because I
come
do too much
down
work.
and do some kind of mobile podcast or something.
Oh, we could do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I want to see it first.
Yeah.
So and get the lay of the land, and
I'm
then
sure
I can.
there's other
figure
ways
out.
we can.
Yeah.
We can.
Come
I
on.
have an idea, and I think it'll be something that you might say would be maybe too repulsive or repelling to what you guys want to do.
I don't.
But
I
it's
think I know what your idea is.
I think we talked about it, didn't we?
I think it's. No.
Well, we'll figure it out.
I think it's doable. It just has to be
Tasteful.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we will somehow. We'll figure it out.
We're going to shoot somebody and try to save their lives.
I know. I'm sitting here like, what's happening?
Oh my God! No, we're not going to do that. People are like, oh, they're going to.
Are you going to actually amputate
we're not
someone's leg?
We're not going to do that. It's not like that. No one's going to get hurt.
When someone,
Jeez.
no, forget it. I will. Well, you'll see.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. But anyway, I gotta wrap this up because I have a 2:30 and I have to grab lunch at some point.
Gotcha.
Which is actually breakfast today. So we'll be doing that.
And you know what? Nutrition's important.
It is. It is.
I learned that at the medical museum.
Oh, it took you this long. Huh?
Yeah. I'm like,
I really enjoy the conversation though. I love having you guys on, and please do it again. We'll come on more often, and you got something new or whatever you want to talk about, a specific thing at the museum.
Okay,
come on, we'll do that. It's just a lot of fun having you guys on. So thank you very much. Thanks to the audience. You guys have been good with the comments today. I appreciate that.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you very much.
What is this here? I love that idea. AG Night at the Museum. Live amputations. I think Grant volunteered an arm. There you go. We'll cut off Grant's arm. Great. You get an all expenses paid trip from Australia.
Grant, too.
Yeah, right.
Oh, no.
Anyway, you guys take care. We'll talk to you next time.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.